All right. Welcome to the May 11th meeting of the Stowe Board of Selectmen. With me tonight, we have Megan Birch-McMichael, Jim Salvi, Ellen Sturgis, and Denise Demkowski. And is Courtney going to be here?
No,
Courtney's virtual.
Courtney's virtual tonight. All right. First off, I will start with public input. Do we have any public input tonight? Please raise your virtual hand to be recognized.
There is a virtual hand.
And I have an iPhone.
Hi, this is Dorothy Granite. I had sent in a couple letters recently, the latest of which stated that due to inaction of Craig Martin over a 3.5-year time period to enforce a bylaw that I've been requesting, I've decided just to talk directly with the selectmen. I know they did speak with him at one point. What he did was inform me, he sent a letter stating that there were bylaws to the businesses. I asked him in January for follow-up. I haven't heard from him since. In January, I also asked for the buffer zone between the Presti property, number 84, and the conservation designated land to be enforced. He hasn't gotten back to me on that. He's passed his 14 days required from Mass General Law to get back if he disagrees. So I have yet to see anything occur over there that looks like something's being done in regards to that. I hope you can understand that I have tried to be patient, but at 3.5 years' time, I don't feel it's worth my while to correspond with Mr. Martin, except to make CCs to him that are legally necessary. If you have a reason where I should be more patient, I'd be willing to hear that, but.
I would suggest you talk to our town administrator and thank you for your input.
I have a question. I thought the select board is supposed to be like making sure that the boards do what they're supposed to, but it's the town administrator that would handle this, not the select board?
Well,
Is that her job function?
the town administrator will talk to you, find out what your concerns are, and then make the appropriate
I asked a direct question. Is the select board the one that's supposed to ensure that the different boards follow their positions? I don't want to get tossed around here.
No, he's a town employee, and so, sorry.
Okay,
And so that's what he he falls under the purview of the town administrator, which is why Tom was suggesting that you will have a conversation hopefully with the town administrator about this.
That makes it totally clear.
Does that, you understand? Okay, good.
Oh, that's totally clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Do we have any other public input?
I have one.
You're not the public.
I know. Well, I am.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
I'm sitting on this side of the table. I know, wouldn't be allowed in the room. So even though there will be other celebrations to be had, we know this is for the selectmen. This is your last meeting, official meeting of the selectmen. So we wanted to get you a little something. This is a replica of what you will be getting. I'll explain that later. But we know that you particularly admire our working staff, and this is a limited edition apparently. You only can get it if you're really
It is.
special and stuff.
It's true.
So it's a sweatshirt with the town emblem on it that you will be able to wear proudly, even though you don't have to come to meetings anymore.
I can call in and harass you.
That's right. But thank you again, Tom, for, we are gonna plan other things to celebrate all that you've done for Stowe and for us as both select board as well as the town, so.
Thank you very much.
Hear, hear.
And as this is my last regularly scheduled meeting, other than town meeting, and unless we have another meeting next week, I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure to serve with you guys, all of you, and we've got a great staff here in town. we've got a lot of hardworking people, and we've got an awful lot of hardworking volunteers too, that, you know, aren't nearly as visible, but they're doing very, very important work, and I'm very grateful for everybody that I've worked with over the years, so,
Many years,
many years.
many
Yeah.
years.
It's, I think I added them up, it's over 20 at this
Yeah,
point,
that's what I
So-
would guess.
We're grateful for everything you've done, Tom. Thank you.
so. And any other public input? I'll take other pats on the back. Thank you very much, Ellen, and to all my colleagues. If there's no other public input, first off, I'd like to thank all the people who stepped forward at this, at the town election last weekend. As I just mentioned, I've met an awful lot of good people working here, and it's all the people who step forward for all these volunteer positions that actually keep the town going, and put in an awful lot of time. And I'm very grateful that people ran for public office and stepped forward. In particular, Ellen and Zach Burns, who continue, or Ellen, who's continuing on the board, and Zach Burns, who's stepping forward to allow me to retire. So it's kind of bittersweet, but it's time, and thank you to all the folks that stepped forward. And I'd also like to thank our town clerk, Linda Hathaway, and the assistant town clerk, Deb Scythe, for the smooth election last Saturday, and all the preparation work that went into making it a success. They'd been stuffing ballots into the mail for the last few weeks. And I'd also like to thank all the people that voted, took the time to vote. It's all the people who stepped forward really deserve the support of all the people in town. Town meeting is gonna be held a week from this coming Saturday on May 22nd. On Saturday, May 22nd, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. This year as last year, there'll be an indoor and an outdoor component under a tent, due to the continuing COVID precautions. Please participate if you can, and remember that the town meeting is where town spending is determined, and that's what determines your tax bill. That's all I've got for today. Next up, we have a couple of appointments. And Denise, I will let you take the lead on these.
Yes, so there's 3 highway positions that we've had posted. The highway department mechanic, we are recommending Derek Hopper. He has been an employee but was on active duty for a while and has just returned, and brings back with him his experience as a mechanic in the military, and we look forward to getting him into that position. Jerry Camara has also been working as a, I don't remember if he was per diem or temporary, but he's been working in the department, and we are recommending him for the full-time tree grounds driver laborer position. And Nicholas Whalen has been working as a per diem for us, and we'd like to recommend him for the temporary. It's a full-time temporary, not benefit eligible, but he'll be working 40 hours a week in the temporary position that we have. Steve and his team actually conducted the interviews and made the recommendation, which I support, and I ask you to do the same.
Do we have any questions or comments?
I saw Mr. Camara has a beaver trapping license, which,
He just got it.
this is huge.
Yep.
These issues don't come up a lot, but when they do, there's so few people who have these licenses. You have to wait so long, and homeowners have to pay so much money. If this guy can actually handle this stuff for us, this would be terrific.
Yes, I agree.
We've had a number of people over the years that have had trapping licenses. And it's always a good thing. It kept us out of a lot of trouble down at Pompo years ago. It was still a school.
Where there was a huge
Where there
problem.
was a big problem with the backup.
Yes, we haven't had one though for a couple of years, someone with a license, so this will be much needed.
One of the things we didn't discuss,
Who's doing
is
motion?
who's gonna make motions?
Sure,
and
I can
second?
do it.
Oh, okay.
Do you wanna do it?
I haven't done it for a while.
Alright, you do it, I'll second.
All right, I move to appoint Derek Hopper as a full-time highway department mechanic.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Courtney.
Should we just,
Unanimous? And might as well just go on to the next.
I move to appoint Jerry Camara as a full-time highway department tree and grounds driver laborer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again.
Right. And I move to appoint Nicholas Whalen as a temporary highway department tree and grounds driver laborer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, Steve, you've
Thank
got
you
your
all.
3 new bodies.
Yeah, he must be a happy man.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, disposition of some surplus goods and equipment for Stowe TV. I think we've been provided with a list of all of the stuff that they want to get rid of. And it looks like they're planning on taking them to Troop 1, so we'll be paying to dispose of them.
But
Yes.
Do you have any comments on that, Denise, or?
No, I support it. Obviously, as you can see by the list and the picture, the equipment is very outdated. So it's nice when we have the ability to do some cleanup and get rid of the equipment that we have just lying around. So I support this.
sort of takes me back though, you know, VCRs and
Yeah.
camcorders, remember all that stuff?
There's a 12-foot TV in there.
Really?
Perhaps he means inch.
Looks like you'll have a lot more space up in the office.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Great.
I love having a photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was helpful.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay, in that case, I'll entertain a
All
motion.
right, I move to declare as surplus the goods and equipment on the list provided by Stowe TV Director Jonathan Dacey, valued at less than $10,000 and belonging to the town, and to authorize the disposal of these surplus items.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Next up, we have Zackary Fentross of Melanson Audit, the Melanson Audit Manager, to present and discuss the FY20 audit report. Denise, I see Zackary Fentross on there.
Yes.
Hello,
Zach, how are you today?
good, and yourself?
Doing well, doing well.
So it's the floor mine, can I rock and roll, or?
Just go for it.
Okay, so again, my name is Zach Fentross. I am the audit manager who is in charge of the June 30, 2020 audit for the town of Stowe. And tonight I'm gonna go through the financial statements and the management letter, and I'll highlight some certain account balances and trends. And if at any point anybody has any questions, please feel free to stop me and we can go over those at that time. Before we jump into the financial statements, I think it's important to have a conclusion or a takeaway from my presentation. And I think that the individuals here, your takeaway from the presentation should be that the town is in a good financial position. The town has a strong general fund unassigned fund balance. The town had positive turnbacks on your budget versus actual for fiscal year 2020. And you also have an OPEB trust fund with annual contributions. So if I could, I'd like to turn to the first page after the table of contents. And the first page after the table of contents is the first page of the independent auditor's report. This is essentially what the town of Stowe hired us to produce. The town received a clean opinion, which is the best opinion you can receive from an independent audit, and it is the same opinion that the town has received in prior years. If I could have you turn the page to page 2 of the independent auditor's report, There's an item here that I'd like to bring to your attention. Maybe about halfway down or a third of the way down the page, there's a paragraph that's titled Emphasis of Matter. And in January of 2020, there were some possible financial irregularities that were discovered, and currently there is an ongoing investigation into the matter that is being conducted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. At this time, I'm unable to answer any further questions that you may have on this matter or provide any further explanation because, again, the investigation is ongoing. I did want to bring this to your attention and highlight it here tonight because this is an unusual paragraph to have in an inclusion in an independent auditor's report. So I could have you turn the page to page 3, which is the first page of the management's discussion and analysis. The management discussion and analysis takes place on pages 3 through 10. And essentially, this is just a narrative summary of the results of operation for the town. This section also discusses any major financial areas. So instead of just simply sitting here and reading this to you, I'd actually like to jump to page 11, which is the first page of the statement of net position. And on page 11 and some further pages, we'll discuss the same items that are discussed here in the management discussion and analysis. So page 11 is really the first half of the statement of net position. It's going to show just the assets. On page 12, you'll see the liabilities and the fund balance. As you can see, there's only one column here called governmental activities. Essentially what this column represents is the town's general fund, special revenue funds, capital project funds, trust funds, and they're all consolidated and presented in just one column. And then the town's long-term assets and long-term liabilities are included. And here I'm going to focus a little bit more on the long-term assets and then the long-term liabilities on page 12. So maybe about a third of the way down the page, you'll see capital assets. And the very first one is called land and construction in progress. And that has a balance of $16,341,000. It's actually about a $1.6 million increase from the prior year. Now that increase is primarily due to work that has been done on the Lower Village roadway improvement in fiscal year 2020. Right below that, you'll see other capital assets net of accumulated depreciation. These are your depreciable capital assets. And that has a balance of $46,932,000. It remains relatively unchanged from 2019. It actually had a slight increase of about $115,000. Now that increase is due to about $2 million in current year additions to capital assets, but those additions were softened by depreciation expense of about $1.9 million, which is why you see the increase of about $100,000. Now some of the major capital projects or capital items that took place this year for the town of Stowe was $992,000 was spent on a new HVAC system for the town hall. $198,000 was spent on roadwork improvements, and then $135,000 was spent on a new backhoe loader. If I could have you turn the page to page 12, which is where you'll see the liabilities and fund balance. I'm going to again focus just on some of the long-term liabilities on this page. Maybe about halfway down the page, or maybe about a third of the way down the page, is you'll see non-current. And the very first one is bonds and loans payable net of current portion. And that has a balance of $22,016,000. It's about a $1.2 million increase from the prior year. Now that increase is primarily due to some new bonding that the town had in fiscal year 20 for about $2.3 million. And that bonding was used for a new fire pumper, the town HVAC system that I had previously mentioned, as well as the Lower Village roadway improvement fund. Now, I said there was a $2.3 million increase, but the town did have some principal payments in fiscal year 20, which decreased, softened that increase down to about $1.2 million. Now, what's important to note about this balance is that your users of the financial statement, your bond rating agencies, like to see debt being paid off, about 70 to 75% of your debt paid off within a 10-year period. And currently, the town will be paying off 60% of your debt within a 10-year period. Now, the primary reason for this being a bit lower than that ideal 70 to 75 is the town issued 25-year bonds in the prior fiscal year for the new fire station and community center. So although it's not exactly where the users of the financial statements would like to see this ratio, it's certainly not a bad financial position for the town, but it's something that I did want to bring to your attention. Right below bonds and loans payable is net pension liability. Your net pension liability is a balance of $11,909,000. This is relatively unchanged from the prior year. It actually had a slight increase of about $263,000 from fiscal year 19. Now, what this represents is the town of Stow's portion of the total unfunded liability for the Middlesex County retirement system. Now, what's important to note about this figure, it's actually presented as of December 31st, 2019. So before the impact of COVID. I'm unaware or can't speak to any impact that COVID may have had on the retirement system subsequent to this date, as that information is not readily available at this time. What is also important to note is the system is actually, in total, is funded at about 49.45%. Now, this is on the lower end in the Commonwealth. What we see as an average in the Commonwealth is between 65 to 70% funded for retirement systems in the Commonwealth. Right below the net pension liability is your net OPEB liability. And OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. This is essentially the town's health insurance. And that has a balance of $6,819,000. It's actually about a $3.2 million decrease from the prior year. Now, that decrease is primarily due to three items. The first is a change in assumptions in relation to that liability, and this liability is determined and calculated by an actuary. And the first, the assumption that changed was the discount rate. The discount rate was increased from 5.5% to 6.5%, and that increase, or that change in assumption actually decreased the liability by about $930,000. The second item is another assumption change. It was the percentage of employees who assumed to elect coverage upon retirement was updated. And with that update and that assumption, it actually decreased the liability another $1.5 million. And then finally, the premiums for healthcare, for Medicare supplement plans are increasing less than what was anticipated by the actuary originally, which led to another decrease in the liability of approximately $1.1 million. So those three changes really led to that big, large decrease in that liability from about $10 million in fiscal year 19 to about $6.8 million in fiscal year 20. That is everything I wanted to bring to your attention on the statement of net position.
Zach, can I ask a question on the adjustments?
Sure.
So when you're talking about that they were all, because of three different adjustments, the liability went down, do you have an opinion on whether those were valid, like to go from 5 to 6%? Is that something that you see in other places, or is there a reason why we had that big adjustment?
I think maybe in part some of the big adjustments were that the town changed actuaries in fiscal year 20.
Okay.
So that certainly could lead into it, but we have a lot of experience with the actuary that the town is currently using. And we see pretty much across the Commonwealth that a 6.5% discount rate is pretty standard. It's not too high, too low. It's right in line with other towns of similar size to the town of Stowe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zach, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You mentioned in connection with page 12, I think, a tiny bit of uncomfortableness with the amount of bonds we currently have outstanding. I don't know if this is a question for you or for Denise. We currently have, I think, a AAA rating on our bonds. Any reason to think that that might be jeopardized?
No. Again, I think, the takeaway of this is that the town is in a good financial position.
Okay.
Your users of the financial statements, such as your bond rating agencies, are going to be aware that in fiscal year 19, the town did a 25-year bond as opposed to a 20-year bond, which, it extends out those payments, which makes that ratio look a little bit off from where they would like to see it. But I think that there's no concern of changing of the town's AAA rating.
Thank you. And one minor thing, when you were talking about our capital assets, you mentioned a road we recently built. Some of the things that are in there obviously don't have a fair market value. They can't be sold. I assume the value comes from the cost of construction?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If I could have you turn the page to page 14. And page 14 is your governmental funds balance sheet. Now, the main difference between page 14 and page 12 is they're both balance sheets. But page 12 is a long-term view of the town's financial position, and page 14 is more current, short-term view of the town's financial position. So that's really the big difference between page 12 and page 14. Page 14 is not going to have any long-term liabilities or any long-term assets included. And as you can see, there are 5 columns here on page 14. The first one is your general fund, and that's the combination of your general fund plus your stabilization funds. The second one is your major community improvement fund, or excuse me, your community preservation fund. The third is your lower village roadway improvement fund. Again, that's also a major fund for the town of Stowe. And then that fourth column is your non-major governmental funds. That's the combination and consolidation of your special revenue funds, your capital project funds, and your trust funds, and they're all consolidated and presented in that one column. And then that final column, your total governmental funds, is just the summation of the prior 4 columns. But for tonight's presentation, I actually look to focus our attention on that very first column, that general fund column. And the first number I'd like to bring to your attention is property taxes. It's actually 3 numbers from the top. And that is a balance of $850,000. It's a slight increase from the prior of about $77,000. But what's important to note is that the majority of this balance is either comprised of current year levies or liens. So the town of Stowe does a good job of protecting your receivables and leading them in a timely manner to ensure payment at some point in time in the future, which again is a strong position for the town of Stowe and will be viewed favorably by users of the financial statements. The last item the next item, and also the last item I want to bring to your attention on this page is actually 3 numbers from the bottom. It's your unassigned fund balance. And that has a balance of $3,364,000, which is about a $691,000 decrease from the prior year. And I'll get into the reason for that decrease here in a moment, but the reason I really wanted to highlight this figure, it's one of the more important figures in your financial statements. This is essentially the starting point for the Department of Revenue's calculation of free cash. And bond rating agencies or other users of your financial statements like to see this figure at 5 to 10% of the town's annual budget. And as of June 30th, 2020, that ratio, comparing your unassigned fund balance to the budget, was at 10.3%. So that's a strong, good financial position for the town of Stowe to be in, which will be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements. What's also important to note about this figure is that stabilization is included in your unassigned fund balance. And stabilization makes up about 18% of that total balance. Now, the reason for that decrease in the balance is really threefold. The way that I'll look at it is you started the year with a balance in your unassigned fund balance of about $4 million. The town utilized $681,000 during your FY21 budgeting process. So you started with 4, you utilized 681,000 of that. You also utilized 436,000 of it from the stabilization to help fund your lower village roadway improvement fund. So you started with 4 million, you took out about 700,000, you took out about 400,000, but then you added back about 487,000 during your during the fiscal year due to favorable results of operation when comparing your budget versus your actual. Now, if we actually turn to page 18, I can show you those budget versus actual results of your operations. And on page 18, again, is just your general fund budget versus actual. There's 4 columns here. The first one is your original budget. The second one is your final budget. That third column is your actual amounts, whether it be your actual revenues or your actual expenditures. And then that final column, which is where I'd like to focus our attention, is either your favorable or unfavorable variance when comparing the final budget to your actual amounts. Maybe about a third of the way down the page, you can see total revenues. The total revenues had a favorable variance of $51,658. This represents the amount of revenues that came in greater than what the town anticipated during the budgeting process. Likewise, maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page, you'll see total expenditures. The total expenditures had a favorable variance of $435,000. So this represents the amount of expenditures that came in less than what the town anticipated, which at the very bottom, that very last number on that far right column at the bottom of the page, you can see in total, the town essentially beat the budget by about $486,615, which again is a good position for the town to be in, to have favorable turnbacks on your budget versus actual process. Now that's everything I really wanted to bring to your attention in the financial statements. Are there any questions before we move in to the management letter?
Really clear, thank you.
Perfect. Just one second. So moving on to the management letter. So in addition to proving out the town's balances in your financial statements, we also look at the town's internal controls to ensure that your assets are being appropriately safeguarded. If we were to see any areas where improvements could be made, we would document that and recommend that here in the management letter. And if issues were serious enough, we'd either classify them as a significant deficiency or a material weakness. And this year, the town did have one significant deficiency, but the town did not have any material weaknesses. And if I could, I'd like you to turn to page 3, which is where the first recommendation is. The first recommendation is to ensure accurate recording of the town's meeting actions and monitor revenue budgets. This was a recommendation in the prior year as well, and the town did resolve our recommendation to ensure that all meeting actions are included in the town's budget. However, we also recommended importing the revenue into the revenue budget into the town's general ledger, and this was not addressed during the fiscal year 2020. Additionally, in the current year, we noted that the town was incorrectly closing some article carryforwards to unassigned fund balance at year end. So we're simply recommending that the town ensure that those remain in a committed fund balance at year end. At the bottom of page 3 is the second recommendation, which is to improve the internal controls over the payroll database. And this is the significant deficiency that I had spoken about. So currently, the town has a segregations of duties issue over the payroll process. The employees who are responsible for the processing of payroll also have the ability to create employees in the payroll system, as well as to adjust employees' pay rates or other attributes within the payroll system. When you have a town the size of Stowe, some of those segregation of duties issues can become challenging due to some smaller departments. So what we're recommending is the town implement some compensating internal controls to ensure by reviewing what we'll call edit reports to ensure that any adjustments to the payroll database are for real employees and are any changes to pay rates or other attributes are correct as well. If I could have you turn the page to page 4, which is the next page. Halfway down the page is other recommendations. And this is just a compilation of some other recommendations that were not serious enough to warrant a separate individual comment, but we wanted to include them here in the management letter. And based upon the town's responses to each of these items, it's pretty clear to me that the town is in the process of resolving all of these recommendations. And then finally, on page 6, which is the last page of the management letter, is the final recommendation. And it's not even really a recommendation. It's to prepare for the GASB, and GASB stands for the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's statements 84 and 87. This is more of an FYI. We just wanted to bring this one to your attention that in fiscal year 21 as well as fiscal year 22, the town of Stowe will need to implement statements 84 and 87. And the town of Stowe is not alone. These are going to be implemented by every municipality across America now in fiscal years 21 and 22. Any questions, concerns, comments on the management letter?
Zach, were you given access to all the documents and people that you needed access to?
Yes.
Did you encounter any difficulties at all that you want to bring to our attention?
I'm not sure what you mean, the difficulties in receiving documentation or support?
In the process, yes.
No, anytime that we asked for information from any town employee, they were very forthcoming and provided us with in a very timely manner.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Sounds like we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, again, I really want to be clear, that should be your takeaway from a financial perspective. The town is in a good, strong financial position.
Thank you, that was very clear.
Yes.
Really appreciate that.
Can I, if I could just say to Zach, I've sat through a lot of presentations like this in my professional life. I think Ellen has too. That was one of the clearest and best organized presentations of this nature that I have ever sat through, and I very much appreciate it. Denise, on the management issues, I think some of those were small issues noted last year. Could we maybe target a report from you in 3 or 4 months on those issues as well as the larger issues in the treasurer's office?
Certainly. Actually, most of the issues in here have already been resolved, but I can certainly give you a breakdown, and I will get an update on the larger matter to present in an executive session to you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just one minor question, I guess it might be helpful to know, what was the period of time you actually ran the audit? I mean, given audit transitions.
I believe that we were in January to do field work. Certainly it was a little tough with COVID, but I think we had this wrapped up maybe mid-February, had some drafts out in mid-February, and then it was finalized in mid to late March.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And again, thank you for those kind words, I really appreciate that.
It was really well done.
Yeah,
Tell your
no,
boss,
very-
maybe
I'd
he'll
like
give you
to
a-
add to that, Zach, I have not sat through many of these or perhaps any of them, and I was able to follow it, and I'm very grateful
Yes.
for your clarity.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
the
I-
clarity, that's what I was trying to say, yeah.
That's real praise. Great, all right,
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for having me, I hope you all have a great night.
thanks.
Thank
Zach.
you.
Thank you.
And just a comment for anyone at home or watching, the audit reports are all on our website. They're all under the town accountant's office, so I think I put the last 5 or 6 years, so all this information is out there, it's all public, so folks can go on and read it and look at the items that he identified if you'd like. Thank you.
Yeah, he was
Thank you,
prepared.
Denise.
That was terrific.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful for you all to see, obviously, independent auditors once a year and to have, it come from them. Obviously, they provide lengthy books and reports, so to have him pick out sort of the numbers that are really important that you should know about and focus on, I think it's just important.
Really
Absolutely.
And does the finance committee, I mean, I'm talking to the 2 former finance committee, does the finance committee ever meet with the auditors?
No.
I mean, is that not something, this
No,
is when
never.
I don't know how the government side works, okay.
No. I did tell them that he was going to be here tonight if they wanted to jump on and watch the presentation, but no, it's not normally standard for finance committees to meet with them.
I have to say, when you proposed this, I thought it was a great idea for the sake of transparency, but I was skeptical because I have sat through these and I could barely stay awake. And it was incomprehensible and they weren't prepared. It was a cloud and they was laid in front of my board and just said, any questions? But he was prepared and clear, and something like that is extremely useful.
Yeah.
So I just wanna confess I was skeptical.
Well, and the management letter is really, I mean, it's appalling how rarely the management letter gets presented to
Management.
the management, cause it's, I mean, I go into nonprofits all the time that just don't even know that there was one. And even if you can't understand the numbers, that's really, that's important stuff to know as a third party looking at how things are being operated, so.
We got copies, I know last year we got copies, because last year I remember well, because of those issues. But we did not have a presentation like this, and we, we discussed with Bill the results.
Yeah.
But this was, and even to do a little bit of due diligence, like I tried to do, but I was just making it up.
You did good, you picked it.
Yeah, but there's other questions I
Well,
couldn't
yeah.
remember.
Well, then we'd have to have Denise leave the room and,
That's true,
that
that's
mean-
true. But no, it's a very good idea. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up is discussion of town meeting warrant articles that we might like to, you wanna vote on all articles, Ellen?
Did I say that? I don't think I said all articles.
Well, that's what
Is
that's
that
what
what
you
my
put in
email
the
said?
email, but I didn't know if you meant all articles or all the
no, on
articles
the ones
you
that I
listed.
mentioned.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, no,
I was like, are we going through the whole course
Shoot
today?
me right now. No, we're not gonna be here all night, I swear to God.
Thank
I
you.
mentioned plenty, but
Okay.
not that many, sorry.
Alright.
All right, the,
So just.
other than your 1 through 57, we've got 3, 4, 35, 36, 38, 39, 45, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54.
We just saved 31.
I know I had a longer list than I thought I was going to.
And the two of you barely overlapped.
I know.
Right.
Did you send it? I don't think I,
It's in your packet.
Here, it's right, it's just one page.
oh, sorry, thank you.
So, the ones that I just read off, I take it that's, everybody's happy with that list then?
Yes, and Courtney, if you have any other ones that you wanna add to the list.
Nope, I think I'm fine, thank you.
All right, well, we can start with, Article 3, the salary classifications. Jim, you wanted,
So I'm suggesting that we vote on some of the things that are new initiatives or policy initiatives of Denise's. I think it's important that, I think my sense of the board is that we're in favor of it, but I think it's important that we stand with her, especially at her first town meeting on some of this stuff. And 3 and 49 sort of go together as related to the Collings report. So if we're looking for a motion, I'll move that the board support or recommend approval by town meeting of Article 3.
Second?
any discussion? In the case, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Alright, so, one of the things I'm gonna do with this stuff is I will get it to Dave afterwards because he will wanna know if we're going to be supporting them.
And if you'd like, Tom, I can do that as part of, we're writing up the motion, so I can include that in the motion booklet if you'd like.
Okay, that would be great, thank you. Article 4, Ellen, you wanted to discuss the Assistant Town Administrator position.
And this sort of in the same way that Jim just mentioned, we've heard a lot about it, I think, and I think it's going to be misunderstood. When we saw the first letter, it didn't surprise me, but I do think it's really a really overdue and really important cost savings to the town by having someone, particularly as I discussed earlier, you know, whether to call it an HR position or assistant TA. I understand now why it's an assistant TA in terms of flexibility, that makes even more sense, but people don't understand how much we've sort of been hurt / cost, you know, had to pay out because we weren't keeping up with a lot of really serious HR requirements and issues. So I think it would be important and I actually don't know how the board feels about it, but I would like to make a motion that we specifically on the assistant town administrator position, that we vote to support the addition of that position.
Well, since Jim wanted to also discuss the whole budget, or is it a subset of it, Jim?
We've traditionally supported the budget. That may not be true. In some years, we've taken a formal vote to support the budget. Again, I thought because it's Denise's first year, it was important to do that. I would be happy to just, in a way, I think standing up and saying we recommend approval of Article 4 isn't very effective. It's kind of expected, and the FinCom will have said the same thing. And so it's just like we're just joining a chorus. So maybe it's more effective to kind of call out one of the more important things like the assistant TA position. So I'm in favor of that.
All right. I'm just trying to think of what the best way to do it is if we wanted to take, what if we wanted to take a position on the whole budget? I think we probably support the entire budget. And in our recommendation, we say we support the entire budget, in particular the town administrator or the assistant town administrator position. That way it kind of covers it all without having to beat it, you know,
That's fine.
wonder why people, or have people wonder why we're specifically, you know, trying to support only one line item or something.
So I'll move that we support Article 4 and in particular, the addition of the assistant town administrator position.
Second?
I would only say that I expect, you know, when we go through it, that line will be held, and so then we might have an opportunity
I'll be able to
speak
say it at that
more
point.
to it, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Capital items.
So my general thing is, actually, I've been always disappointed how little the selectmen have to say about the budget at town meeting. It rarely gets, finance committee always says something because that's what they have to do, but, so I just wanted us to at least have a chance to review the capital and see if there was anything that we felt like in particular we should be, prepared for, or, I mean, I guess I'd like to know what our positions are, but I understand that's not normal.
Can I make a comment before you start discussing it? So just a couple of comments on this, and one of them is I made a mistake when I put the comment for the finance committee next to item 6. That should be next to item 5, the bucket truck. They received information showing what it would cost to rent a truck for the needs of the highway department versus purchasing one outright. And I looked at the wrong truck when I put that section down there. So they support both of them, but that additional comment is for the bucket truck. Additionally, the fire department, item 4, we're still waiting to hear if the fire department has received a grant for that. They were supposed to hear in May. If they hear in the next week and a half, that will be removed on town meeting floor. There is a good chance that they will receive that grant, but we have not heard from that yet. And item 9, the finance committee was, actually, they just voted favorably on that. So they just discussed that, and they just before this meeting voted favorably on that item. So the rest of them, the finance committee was in support of. And I can answer any questions on any of these because we have had many meetings on these items.
Well, one of the things is, before I would want to take a position on any of these, I'd also want to hear from capital planning.
So capital planning has approved all of these.
Yes, this is how capital voted.
Yeah, now, this is at least a slightly pared down list from the requests. But these are the items that capital has approved. Believe it or not, the bucket truck wound up being the only divided vote, I believe. But I think in the end, after getting that new information, everybody was on board with that. I would call out, I was gonna call out for you the fact that the firefighter turnout gear might be grant funded, but Denise just did that. The only other thing I want to point out to you is Article 3, and I've mentioned this before, but it's worth, the original proposal was to replace at DEP's order. This is why DEP is trouble. There's nothing wrong with the existing water line from town building past town hall, down Crescent Street, down to the library, and down Common Road. Nothing wrong with it. But they're anticipating problems. So they want to know, how do we know there's not gonna be a leak? So the original proposal was, well, it is old, we have had some leaks which caught their attention, to just replace the whole thing. This engendered a discussion at capital planning with Denise about why are we supplying water to a few houses, the church. At this point, gratefully, they're all paying for it and they're paying a share of any capital improvements. But why are we even doing it? For the proposed cost of replacing this line, we could pay for new wells for all of the private users. So Craig withdrew the request to replace the line and now just wants to fund a study to see what our options are. Options that would satisfy DEP, which is how this whole thing started.
$30,000 study?
It's
Consultants.
it's pretty standard, I would say, for.
And I would say that, as Jim sort of articulated, it's not a straight line pipe. It does go up and around, it actually goes under the front of the library. So I do think they would have to do some work, because we have had a number of small leaks that have been repaired. So I think they would have to do some work to see what our options are, what we could do going forward, what they would propose, if they propose that we install separate wells. And everyone seemed in favor of going this approach and actually studying this system and what the options are versus just going ahead and replacing the pipes.
So if we were looking for an item to support here that has kind of a policy dimension to it, I think that would be the one.
I will say on a separate matter, that will go hand in hand with that, with the new American Recovery Plan money, they are putting a significant amount of money into water and sewer infrastructure. So we've had some conversations about, could we possibly, if the study says we need to do X, Y, and Z, could we use these funds to then remediate those problems? Or, if we need to replace the lines, is that something that this federal money could do? So we're still working on that because guidelines just came out last night and they're working on the remainder of the guidelines for the specific categories. But water infrastructure seems to be a big portion of these new recovery funds.
Great.
Jim, since you know the capital stuff, the October Lane, there's just a sort of a series, a schedule, right, of roads that get.
They actually got bumped from last year's town meeting,
Yeah,
I remember.
I remember hearing that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there just does the town highway department have sort of a list that they're
There's a
constantly
schedule.
monitoring?
Yeah.
And then you were talking about Hartley Road earlier, and I guess I'm still skeptical what the need is for this.
I
mean,
was too.
The irony, and this goes back to Center, when there used to be cars parked up and down Great Road because, all these parents wanted to pick up their kids and there wasn't enough road. And then we built this huge parking lot and a whole system so that it would get people off Great Road, and now there's just more parents driving their kids to school or picking them up. So I'm not sure, I think this is a good strategy to make it easier. I mean, if it's a safety thing for fire, then yeah, okay, I guess we have to, but you know, we're forced to do buses because we're a regional school district, and it just irks me that the same people who are all about green power are then driving their kids to school every day. So I'm not sure I'm really, even though it's only $37,000, I'm skeptical.
I will say, I'm only skeptical of it because I have children at Center, and so deal with that. And this is the way that the bus route is now. The buses never used to drop off in the front of Center. They always dropped off in the back of Center.
Right.
And so they flip-flopped it this year because of COVID.
Oh.
Also, parents are not putting their kids on the bus right now because of COVID.
Well, because of COVID, right.
So
No, I
it's
get the
like,
COVID thing.
I think right now, that's my only like skepticism about this is because I'm, when you change too many variables and too many things are happening at once and then you're making a decision based on lots of variables changing at once, that's why I had questions about it. Knowing that it's a fire thing, knowing that the highway is involved in it, knowing that it seems to be multifaceted, and as you were saying, I guess they are changing the drop-off.
It will be a
And
permanent.
pickup is going to be permanent, then yes, that makes sense if it's going to be a permanent change. But I had questioned it because I figured, why would we be making this investment if it's a temporary fix or a temporary
So they're changing the whole
situation?
drop-off at Center so that the
Yes.
buses go out front and the parents
Yes,
gonna go in the back?
because when the parents were dropping off in front, it was backing up onto Great Road and it was causing a traffic hazard.
Right,
So
right.
to mitigate that, they've moved the buses to the front and the parents to the back to get them off of Great Road. So Hartley Road is a
So that's why-
staging area
So this is
for,
still about Center.
it's still about
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that makes me even crazier.
So, can I respond to what you said? I mean, on a real gut level, when the school system and the police chief tell me that something's necessary, I sort of go along with
Yeah,
that.
I didn't know, I hadn't heard that public safety was involved, so it's.
But, I mean, let me ask you this question. To some extent, I think what you said reflects disappointment that so many people are driving there, which I share. But here's the question. Would turning this down,
No, I,
right,
If we had some sidewalks, we could have some more
Sidewalks.
walkers.
but this isn't, I mean, that's not even.
You want sidewalks to plow, huh?
I'm just saying, I
So
would
if we
walk my
can't-
kids to school.
I have to say, we can't get sidewalk money out of this infrastructure plan coming from the feds. There is a aching need for a sidewalk from Pilot Grove to the
Yes,
sidewalk that begins by the old fire station.
yes.
I saw a woman walking with 2 kids and a stroller and a dog, and it was a nightmare.
I run there and it's
Yeah.
terrifying,
Yeah, we're
so
off
yes.
Sorry.
There is some additional funding that the state is getting from this Federal Recovery Act that will be used for smaller infrastructure projects. And we've been asked to put a list together, so I can certainly put that on our wish list.
Yes,
We
please.
can put shovel ready or
But they
dream
have-
project,
right,
so
they have to be shovel
we
ready.
have a lengthy list going,
Right.
but we can add a dream project.
There's water in Lower Village.
Please, please put that high on the list,
That's-
Denise.
So-
It's a really, it's a dangerous place
Mhm.
for, you know.
Mr. Chair, I
Yeah.
think we've had a nice discussion about
Yeah.
capital.
Sorry.
Are we
Yep.
gonna,
What I was gonna say is are there any of these in particular that people want to take a hard position on?
Well, I sort of like Jim's thinking around, let's do more of the policy thing around the water system, that maybe that's the one that makes the most sense as opposed to most of the others that are,
Alright, so
which was number.
Can I say one other thing though? I almost wonder if we should also take a position on these vehicles. Only because it's such a high cost item, but obviously they've looked into other funding sources, i.e. renting them. And I wanna make sure that we're supporting it, knowing that the due diligence has been done. And it's not just they want a brand new truck, so they're gonna get a brand new truck. They've weighed the pros and the cons of it. I don't know, I can be wrong on that, but I think,
Can we just vote on, that the whole capital schedule, is done, the capital planning committee does tons of work, works
Yeah.
with Denise, does tons of work with all the different proposing agencies, so maybe we just vote to support the capital budget as presented.
I would be in favor of that.
I'll entertain a motion then.
I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen support the capital request for fiscal 21, or 20,
22.
22. I'm
Second.
throwback.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. On behalf of capital planning, we appreciate the support.
All right.
You know, I should have pointed out, number 10 has a policy dimension to it as well. Town center corridor study. But
Oh, we didn't even
anyway,
talk about that one, I didn't even see that one. Oh,
I got lost.
there's another,
Article 36
it was on the next page, I missed it. Can you just give a quick, I don't.
So, it's talking about 117, the intersection 117 and 62 right here. And it's a dangerous intersection no matter how you slice it, especially for bikes and pedestrians. As you know, a lot of the projects currently being funded on the tip happen to be bike and pedestrian projects. In this area, the largest projects are at the border of Bedford and Lexington, some bike and pedestrian project, and of course the Bruce Freeman Bridge, the completion of it, and the bridge over Route 2. It's a good time to try to get large bike and pedestrian projects on the tip. Of course, when you're talking about the tip, you're talking about, millions. Before you do that, because I think they don't fund engineering,
Correct.
you need to do the engineering to know what you're talking about. This would essentially create sidewalks and bike lanes. That might be an oversimplification. Jesse might have a heart attack if he hears me say that, but sidewalks and bike lanes from the center down as far as, is it Whitney? Where Jason Robart used to live.
Oh, Wheeler.
Wheeler. I was getting confused. Down about that far. Which is, there's no comfortable way to walk across that bridge. You can bike it comfortably. So this could be very important in the long run. And it just gets it gets us in the tip game for this kind of project.
So I guess I had assumed it was gonna address the fact that there's this sort of nightmare little short hill where the traffic backs up, especially at bus time, between Hartley Road, Library Road, whatever the Library Hill Road or whatever it's called, and
I think it's
It
gonna
is.
fund like a traffic study,
Yes.
it'll fund
Okay, all right.
engineering, it'll fund, they've had a couple of these, like they had done one in Lower Village and they've
Yeah.
funded them that way, and so that's what that would do.
all right, good. Cause it is an intersection it's outgrown its capacity
Oh,
big
yeah,
time.
for sure.
Yes, yeah, so pedestrian access, even the crosswalk out here from town building to town hall, all of that would be reviewed as part of this study. The idea would be to replace the lights as part of the larger project and make that whole intersection
More
pedestrian safe, cause it's really not actually.
Not at all.
No.
Okay, great,
All right.
thank you.
So,
right.
On to Article 36?
I'm gonna withdraw this unless somebody else feels strong. Although this is an initiative, it's new, it's kind of mechanical, ministerial, so I don't
think we, I think we kind of gotta do it.
Yeah.
We have to, and actually, it's in the audit report,
It was
it's
in
in
the
the
audit
management
report,
letter
yeah.
that we need to re-accept the
overdue on
provisions,
that.
so.
so I don't regard it as
Alright,
worth really.
legal services,
So I suggested that only because I think it's larger than it has been. And we have a lot of litigation, and it is, I expect there to be questions, this is always an unpopular item. And this gives us a chance to point out that in all the litigation we have, we're defending the town. There's only one suit that I'm aware of where we are the plaintiff, that we initiated, and that's the one about Lower Village. It's not like we're going out suing people. And I just think it's important for us, because we really do get involved in legal strategy to support the legal services budget.
Yes, because I will
Although,
say.
as you pointed out, the Lower Village defense is not paid for by this item.
That is correct. Yes, but 2 out of our ongoing cases that we are defending are becoming quite active, and I do think one in particular, Collings, it's gonna cost us a lot more before that's resolved. That and the habitat matter is heating up a bit, so we are spending quite a bit of money with our legal funds to defend those 2 cases in particular.
All right. Willing to entertain a motion then?
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen recommend approval by town meeting of Article 38.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey,
The MS4 permit, Article 39.
Maybe this is like reauthorization of OPEB. Maybe since we're recommending on so many other things, maybe this is unnecessary, unless somebody else feels strongly about it.
No, I think we
Support the highway department. Yes, so this is, again, it's a requirement. We have to comply with the NPDES permits and the MS4 requirements. The EPA gave cities and towns sort of a stay on when you had to have these permits implemented, and we are out of time, and we need to start making, it's usually like a 5 to 6 year rollout to implement all the requirements of the permit. So this is, as I mentioned in here, it is going to be an ongoing expense. Folks should get used to the MS4 verbiage, because it will be in our warrants as we fund the requirements of the federal government and the EPA.
And given that we all depend on wells here, or mostly depend on wells here, keeping our waters good, safe is a good thing.
Yes.
An investment in the future.
Yes, and this actually goes hand in hand with the illicit discharge bylaw that's later on, because that is a requirement of the permit, that we have to monitor what is going in the storm drains and catch basins. So all of that has to be monitored, and we need to put regulations in place to keep groundwater clean.
Did you say you do want to support this?
Um,
I'm not putting words in your mouth, my hearing's bad.
no, I mean, I personally support it, but I don't think we need to take a stand
Don't
on it.
need to take a position on it then?
I don't think so. I mean,
It's kind of, yeah, I withdraw.
Alright. Article 45, changing the name of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll speak to this. So I don't know if you all have heard, the state legislature is actually going to be discussing this as part of the constitutional convention. Striking out selectmen and replacing it with select board for the 100 or so municipalities who have not moved forward on this. I think it's important for us as a board to take a position on changing it, as it is, I believe, a necessary change, given the fact that, as is written in here, that that the word man is not synonymous with person anymore, and we are using more gender neutral language, and so I just feel like it's time to move on this. Yeah, and that's all I'd say.
Do you want to add something?
Nope.
I have come to regard this, I think I always regarded this as kind of a no-brainer. I don't regard it as controversial at all. Why should we be bound by what some people in 1683 decided to call this board when it's manifestly inaccurate? So I don't regard this as, I don't expect it to be that controversial.
Courtney had her hand up.
Courtney?
Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment, which actually is not about this article exactly, but it sort of follows on what Megan said. I have come to have a personal bugaboo about the use of the word female as synonymous with woman, and it's a cultural thing, and so I'm just saying this because we're in a public meeting. I believe that part of our shifting of our use of language needs to make that correction as well, so that women are women, not females. We're not dogs, we're not birds, we're not pollywogs or something, we're women. And so I just saying it. In case anybody's listening.
I heard you, Courtney, thank you.
My position on it is that I don't support it, but I kind of feel it's inevitable. But one of the things I am disappointed in, is saying the cost is minuscule. I expect it's gonna come up. Is minuscule $1,000, including all the staff time at hourly rates? Is it $5,000, $10,000, $100,000?
So
It's probably $100.
No,
I'm surprised it's $100. What in the world?
It's just hours, it might be an hour to go through the website and make the few changes, open up a document and type in a search.
But by that standard, every article has a cost, even the ones that say there's no cost. There's no cost to this. Tom, there's
Sure
no
there
cost
is.
to this.
Sure there is.
No, there isn't. What is it?
We're talking to
It's-
Stan.
No,
Stan
it's,
got
it's,
overturned on this one.
it's just gonna be, any staff time.
So we should,
No,
I have to understand, right? Because, so now we're saying that we're just going to keep the male gender. It has to be Board of Selectmen, because it doesn't affect you. This is a personal thing for me, right? Because I'm sitting here as a woman, and I have to be called a select man. And that is not who I am. I'm a select board member, and Jim's right. Why are we bound by what a group of men in the 1600s decided to call it? Things have changed.
I agree, and they're gonna
So
continue
it
to
is
change.
time for this to change. So if you don't want to agree with it, that is completely
Right.
your purview, and that's fine.
No, I'm just.
But I'm still going to stand here and say that I think it is time for this to change.
I do think you're right that the issue of cost will come up. But there is an answer to it. It will be less than $100. It will be scrubbing the website. I'm assuming we'll use up the old letterhead. What, new nameplates or even, no, I don't know. There may be a couple of new nameplates here and there. You know what I really think the argument against this is? It's that our culture's becoming polarized around things that are perceived as PC. And there are a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who don't like being told what I can and cannot say. In fact, I'm one of these stubborn people. If you tell me I can't say it, I'm gonna say it just to see what happens. This isn't part of that. I really believe that. The movement to start making things gender neutral started in the 70s. I remember having this debate about policeman and police officer when I was in 8th grade. I was on the wrong side of it. It has been going on for that long. The movement to start gender neutralizing selectmen and select board started at least in 2005, which is 16 years ago. And now over a third of the select boards out there, including ones to our west that are more rural and conservative than we are, have made this change. Because I believe it's just become a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It is more accurate.
It doesn't change my view of any of my colleagues on the board. It doesn't, in my humble opinion, it's not needed because it really changes nothing.
But But
And
it
that's
does, but
just
it
my
does,
opinion.
Tom, I mean, it does,
Respectfully, yeah.
respectfully, it does, because what you're saying is that as much as you're saying that you don't have a problem with me, we can't have an inclusive language that includes all of us, that the three of us need to fall into the language that's been set. I was an English major. I have struggled with pronouns for a while because it's not how I was taught. But what I realized is that allowing more people to have seats at the table, to allow for inclusive language, can only benefit all of us. And I think that it seems like it's a very small thing, but it's a huge thing. And so I think that's why I'm getting so emotional about it, is because to me, it's not just, oh, well, it doesn't, it's not gonna affect me, so, that's fine. It is affecting me, it's affecting the next generation. It's important for people to see that they can they can sit here and feel included and not have to feel included under the umbrella of someone else. That they can actually look at it and say, is it gonna be a little difficult to call ourselves select board members? I guess, everything's a little bit different when you're changing, but.
And that's it, I'm just saying my piece. It's, like I say, I think it's inevitable, but I'm just saying my piece, and I'm happy to, I'll take a motion.
Can I just make one quick
And
comment
also, I
too?
think Courtney wanted to say.
So in the article, you'll notice that the charter has been removed. Because in order to make the changes to the charter, we would be required to have special legislation. And the legislation would require us to identify every line in the charter that needs to change. So in talking with council, we decided legally the name would still change, but we would wait and see what happens at the state level if they mandate, instead of us having to petition special legislation to just change the verbiage in the charter.
So our charter needs legislation to be? I thought we just needed to create a charter commission.
Well, that's part of it.
It still requires either a vote of the ballot to change your charter, or it requires special legislation. And even the name change, the legislation is requiring special legislation be filed.
Even though the charter itself is not legislation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I talked to council, it will still legally be changed, it's just the charter will not be updated until the state either implements it across the board, or we do a formal special legislation petition to change that verbiage.
And some of it that,
Aren't we gonna review our charter at some point in the
That's in the new.
Yes,
Right.
it's been posted.
future?
It's been posted, but I don't believe anyone has applied yet to serve on the charter review committee. I think it's been out for a year now. So
Huh.
that's something we're gonna work on over the summer to get some people on board to look into
Yeah,
changing.
so I mean, this seems to me like it would be obvious just to clean up items when that sort of happens, and logically, we don't need to deal with it before then because it's a big deal to, it's a big hullabaloo to make a change
Right,
when we're not making a lot of changes.
right. But legally it will change.
To say one more thing on this topic, which is that, I'm in favor of this, I've realized for a different reason, which is that even by calling us select women and select men, we're calling out our differences, and we're not different here in the room. We've agreed to sit together and talk about issues, and it doesn't have anything to do with our gender. And so that's why we don't need gender as part of the nomenclature for what we're doing, is because we're really not talking about gender issues most of the time, except right now.
Thank you, Courtney.
I'm happy to accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that the selectmen support Article 45 to change the name to Select Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I'm sorry, Tom, were you an aye or were you opposed?
No, you said he was
I'm
opposed.
opposed.
Okay, I thought so, but then you said aye and I was confused.
Article 47, online permitting.
So 47 and 48 together, I did regard these as initiatives that the town administrator is bringing forward.
I think it makes sense.
I thought it would be important to support her in this. I'm certainly open to the argument that these are kind of no-brainers and non-controversial and not worthy of it, but
No, I agree with you on that. I think it's, because it's a new budget expenditure, I think it's important that we support it for sure.
and they represent a new way of doing business. so.
Exactly.
Right,
That's what I
well,
was gonna
right,
say.
and it's especially, yeah. I can't believe they did the budget on hand with Excel spreadsheets.
Oh, I can believe it.
I
Do
will,
you know how many
uh,
spreadsheets I had to do to get this? It's like this spreadsheet, then I had to put it on a different spreadsheet, then to format, I had to put it on a different spreadsheet.
You should try living with a department head who has
That's right.
to, because it's not pre-populated, she
Yeah.
has to go back and anyway.
Yep. Good.
I will move, I'm gonna move them together. I'll move that the Board of Selectmen recommend town meeting approve Articles 47 and 48.
Second.
Sorry.
2 seconds. Must be real popular.
That's right.
Or one for each of them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 49.
Same, like I said about Article 3, this is all part of the Collins report. This is really a solid policy initiative that I think we should take a stand on, and an initiative by our new town administrator, so.
Somebody
Go
have a
for it.
motion then?
Is the 80,000 supposed to cover a consultant, or is it just, that's what it's going to cost to get everything up to? Okay,
Correct, that's what it's gonna cost to place everybody where the consultant recommended in the new
got it,
schedules.
got it. Yeah. Do we make a motion?
Oh, sorry. I move, Mr. Chair, I move that Board of Selectmen recommend that town meeting approve Article 49.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Article 50, Great Road Land Donation.
So I think this is a brilliant opportunity and I, I think we talked about it when we did our walk in Lower Village.
Oh,
I think the potential for potential water source, if we actually wanna finally move this town forward, this could be the answer to Maiden's dreams. And I just wanna make sure that the planning board, that we're behind the planning board, but also that the town understands this is more than just a little strip of land. That it actually has potential for helping us out in other ways, so.
Yeah, I am in support of this for sure. I think it is not a buildable lot. And so I don't think there's an argument that we could get revenue out of it. And I do think that it could open up much needed a placement for cisterns, especially if we're looking forward at finally getting Lower Village some additional businesses and looking at zoning and looking at all of these things, I think that it would be silly to not be able to take this parcel and be able to use it as we need to, so.
I agree with all of that.
I make a motion that the selectmen approve, or support Article 50 for the acceptance of the Great Road land.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
51, Alec Point.
Hey, Jim and I both put this on.
Jim and Ellen both put it on there.
I actually don't feel that strongly about it, but I wanna hear what you have to say.
Oh, you want me to, oh, okay. I think it's an important, thing to weigh in on. You all know that I don't agree with, I think, what the prevailing winds are, but, I'm concerned about the use of CPC money, for a piece of property that wasn't listed on any priority list and we act as if, but there's just endless pots of money when we've had really big priority list properties for years that are gonna cost a lot of money. And I worry that by what I would sort of say nickel and diming us, we won't have the money there. And we'll have to go to the town to, you know, draw more money out of taxes in order to purchase some of the properties we've been talking about for decades. So, I totally, appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this property. I don't see it as a huge value. I think that the trail system is never gonna be used because it's going around people's houses and they won't be happy about it. I just think that there's always great conservation land. We have a ton of great conservation land, and I think there's other properties that are far more important, so. But I do feel like the selectmen should take a stand on this, and even if we don't agree, I think we should have a vote on it.
I think we've all discussed this a lot.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's something that I don't know. I really would, obviously it's going to be voted on at town meeting. I just feel like there's a lot of different, I understand completely what you're saying, Ellen. I did have that question about the trails as well, because you're right. I'm coming at this from having sat on the permitting process for the planning board, and I know that I would be fine with it going to development, but also I think if a lot of people have put the work into this as well, then it's fair to put it to a vote at town meeting.
I supported moving it to town meeting.
No, I know. I think I still just don't, I don't know. I don't know how I 100% feel about it either way or another. I think I just don't know that I have a position on it, because I think it's, and so I'm wondering, do you think that it's strong enough that we need to take a position on it, or do we just take no position on it?
Ellen, I'm assuming you're gonna speak at town meeting on this.
Probably, yeah.
Then I think the whole board should take a position, just so there's no mistake, you know, that one select board member is or isn't speaking for the whole board. I was close on this one because I regard it as a transaction. I regard the policy questions here as being minimal. It is not controversial, it's high profile. So maybe we should take a position. On Ellen's points, you know, I think people use conservation trails here no matter where they are. Ones that go in circles, ones that go in U's, ones that go absolutely nowhere, ones that just, you know, they use them. And this one does connect up with the thing that's across the street. The biggest issue I had with this thing during all of our discussions here was the notion that it has an impact on the local neighborhood more than it does for the town as a whole. You can say that about any town resource, any piece of town conservation land. You can say that about the fire department, about the police department. And in fact, we heard that argument when we relocated the fire department, that we were benefiting the people in the west of the town at the expense of people in the east. But they have worked so hard to make a substantial contribution that I'm impressed by how the locality, you know, the local neighborhood is contributing, and they've been creative with other aspects of the financing. So I'm in favor of it. I think it can only be, and you know, development, you can never be certain if it's net tax gain or net tax loss. I think you have to sort of assume that residential development is net tax loss. So I'm in favor of it.
Courtney?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it for a couple reasons. You know, I'll echo Jim. I mean, people walk, I mean, there's conservation trails that I walk on that go right behind somebody's house. You know, what I try to do is think about that and maybe not be shouting while I'm going by their house. Be okay if everybody did that. But I think they'll get used, and I think it's an opportunity to get out and view the water in a way that, isn't necessarily characteristic of a lot of our land, of our town properties, unless you're at Pine Bluffs. I don't particularly see development of this as a gain for the reasons that Jim stated in terms of use of schools and services, but also the reasons that I stated in our last meeting that I think, among other things, it'll just cause a lot of headaches for the conservation department. And I know it's their job, but these properties are gonna be crying for water access, and it's, when we worked on the plans that were submitted for this, it was, there was a lot of haggling just with the developer. And that wasn't, the developer could understand our reasoning about our wetlands laws, whereas, homeowners are they just want what they want, and, I spent a whole bunch of money on this property, and why can't I have a dock, and why can't I, so, Ellen, I agree with you about spending the money on this. I mean, I personally felt a certain amount of disappointment when the CPC funded this knee-jerk and they didn't fund the town hall. I mean, town hall's a whole other conversation, but there are lots of things we could spend our money on. So all that said, I'm still in favor of it because I think, ultimately the package of what the town is actually gonna pay is modest for this piece of property, if it's approved.
I think it's, in addition to it being a good piece of property, I think that our support of it will hopefully give other people that have worked on it so hard an incentive to try to work out other, I'll say, creative solutions. If we were being asked for $1 million on this, I would say definitely no. But the thing is, a lot of people have worked on it, they feel it's valuable. They've come up with some creative solutions on how to get it done. They've done a lot of fundraising for it. So actually, I'm in favor of this.
And I just wanna comment, so as you'll see the note, after the article talks about the contingency with the purchase and sale. So just to make you all aware, we did have a bid opening today for that 3-acre lot of land. And it was favorable and it was above the price indicated here in the warrant. So should we be able to sign the purchase and sale before town meeting and the donations, which are coming in very favorably as well, the expectation is that $400,000 will be amended to a lower number on town meeting floor.
Can I ask you one question? They're selling that as 1 3-acre property with the idea that they're gonna subdivide it into 2 lots? Okay.
Correct. Yep.
And the other thing I was just trying to find, because I think we've been hearing, the way this reads, that there's a 1.020 million and then 400,000 on top of that?
No,
Isn't that the way this reads? Or am I-
we're legally required to put the full purchase price, because we are purchasing it for $1 million.
Right,
400,000 approximately will come from CPC, the money from, so it's the the
okay.
400,000 and the donations and the money from
So
the
it'll
Lincoln sale.
subtract it off
gotcha,
of
okay,
that.
I just wanted to
So-
make sure that
Yes,
was
and the
actually-
CPC will be the amount that's amended, obviously lower, so the additional funds we get from the donations and the land sale will decrease the CPC request.
Okay, and the bit where it says it'll be contingent upon execution of a PNS is what covers us if the buyer pulls out?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay,
And is
and what happens?
is the given this whole thing, the 61 process lasted a lot longer, are we still in that window, or is the governor ended the?
It hasn't ended.
It hasn't, it's 180 days from the expiration of the state of emergency,
And
and
we haven't,
there's no plans to remove the state of emergency.
One question. So if that falls through, sorry, I just wanna make sure I'm very clear on this. So if it were to fall through, we would still be in that 180 days right of first refusal could potentially have to have a special town meeting?
No, so
Or
that's
no?
why so the language in the motion will be contingent upon, so if we have a signed PS, if that falls through, the article could still be contingent upon, we could certainly put it right back out to bid while we're still in that window.
Oh, I see, okay,
So
yep, yep,
should
yep.
something fall through with this initial bid
Okay.
that we have, we could certainly put it back out to bid, but I don't expect,
Okay.
I don't expect it to fall through, I think they're an aggressive bidder and they're looking forward to developing those 2 lots.
Right,
So
okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen recommend town meeting approve Article 51.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I,
Opposed.
Opposed? Ellen, right? $52 pickleball court.
Well, here's the big controversy of
Gonna
2021.
keep people at the end of town meeting though. They're gonna wait right till vote on this.
But why would?
unless they try to move it to the begin,
Yeah.
It's been done before, right?
Right.
So, sorry, so they wanna do this at Town Center Park?
Yes, so at the community preservation meeting last night, Laura presented the 2016, I believe, plan for the original park. In the original plan showed a hard playing court of some type at Town Center Park. That's what was approved by the bodies at that time, town meeting, building the park, open space, conservation, recreation, and this board approved that conceptual design.
Okay.
The issue was there was not enough funding at the time to move forward with a court.
Okay.
The community preservation, so there is some language that has changed a few times. Recreation and community preservation have agreed the only location will be Town Center Park. Their motion will say Town Center Park.
Okay.
It will not say another existing recreation site. The expectation is it will come in less than 65,000, but I've asked them to keep the 65,000 because 3 of our most recent bids have gone well over because the cost of labor and materials right now is through the roof. So we're hoping it will be around 44,000, but until we start putting components out to bid, we would not know that. I think, as you've seen, we have a number of correspondence. I would say it's the most active topic since I've been here that has, gotten some conversation going. We've had people email us saying they can't come to town meeting, can they still vote? Can they still let their voice be heard? So there is a following for pickleball here.
So my question about that, given all of the, emails that we've gotten, all of the everything, is Town Center Park the best place to put that? Like, do we feel like we have enough parking there? Like, is it going to be is that gonna be an issue? Cause
No.
if it was you think it's fine?
I do, because really it's only usually 2 to 4 people depending on how many courts.
Okay,
So parking shouldn't be an issue.
okay.
Sound shouldn't be an issue. We actually saw the type of ball that's used. It's more like a wiffle ball. It makes very little sound.
During the daytime hours, cause
right.
they're not proposing to put lights up there.
No.
right? So, like,
And the recreation stated that should there be any concern by the church that there is noise, they could put restrictions on the hours of play. There was talk about a fence. There may not even need to be a fence because again, the ball doesn't just bounce and roll like a normal hard ball. It sort of floats away.
Okay.
So there's still some talk about maybe just putting shrubs around it and not necessarily a fence. But as of last night, everyone seemed on board with Town Center Park. It would cost more if you put it like Snow Park because of it's all asphalt and they would have to excavate more so than they would have to do here. So they did say the cost to put it someplace else would potentially be higher.
Can I just say, my only hesitation on this, I'm in favor of it, but my only hesitation on this was that it seemed a little anecdotal that Town Center Park was the best place for it. We've got, those letters are good, but when you get right down to it, they're just a few more anecdotes, and some of them were not specific. So if this passes, I'm gonna suggest, and you're gonna love this, I'm gonna suggest that we ask the town administrator to work with the Council on Aging and Recreation to get some kind of a more systematic sense of where seniors want this.
Well, so if it passes, it's going to pass at Town Center Park, cause that's what
That's how
well,
they're
it
gonna
says-
make the motion to be Town Center Park only.
Oh.
I also think as much as seniors are playing, it's from some of the letters, like it sounds like it's a family game. So I don't know that I would wanna just check with the Council on Aging because
No, but that's a population that I think is underserved in terms of active recreation. Seniors, yeah, you don't?
I know how Pompo's used. There's senior recreation classes there. They have better affordable, they have better access to it than
Right.
other people do.
Well, that could be true. I mean, I'm just in favor of
Yeah,
any
but I think
active-
Town Center Park makes sense. We've got, well, not the meeting house, I don't know. Anyway, I just,
Well, all right.
Yeah, so the motion will be specific to Town Center Park only.
I would have preferred this language, but I will still be in favor of it.
should we take a motion?
I'm just
Oh, sorry.
concerned that, well, since I was the one who brought it up, I thought I'd mention, two things, one is, again, so CPC money almost always has some fundraising that the group that's proposing it has matching money, and this has been, and Jim just used a perfect word for this, and now I've already forgotten what he said, but it's been, it's
Anecdotal.
anecdotal, the whole proposal, there was never any numbers for a budget, it's, I'm concerned that the Recreation Commission gets to decide anything on this because they really haven't done their homework. I think Hank, is it, that proposed it initially, did the initial work, but I'm really concerned about that, and I'm just disappointed that there wasn't any, I mean, if all these people really are so excited about it, they should have been doing fundraising to match. We should really push back on CPC, it's like, you've asked other people to come up with, share, in fact, one of the issues, right, with Town Hall was that there was no sort of fundraising involved, and just because it's a smaller amount of money does not mean that, everybody in town gets to pay for a pickleball court that they'll never play on, so, I've not been excited about this from day one, just because of the poor way it's been presented, so, that's all.
Courtney?
So I just, I think one of the things that I try to remember is that I have things that are important to me in town, and maybe not everybody else cares as much as I do, I've danced in the town hall and it's a nice space, and so that's my particular thing. Somebody else loves pickleball and they want that for this. Somebody else loves Alex Point and they want that for their reasons, and we all, it's not, I don't think it's favoritism or factionalism or anything else to support something that a group of people in town like, because it's, town is made up of a bunch of little groups of people that all happen to live within the town bounds that we perambulated, that you guys perambulated most of. So we're this collective of all sorts of interests, and so we should be funding little things like this. And honestly, I wish I thought of what you'd said, Ellen, when the CPC was initially discussing all these things, because they didn't ask for funding. But I kind of feel like it's, in the scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, and I mean, it's a little more than some things, but it's, did we make, when they did the snow, when they did the community park, was there a big fundraising effort for that? I don't recollect.
There was some, yeah, because some of the other groups, I think, put money in, but
Yeah.
I hear you,
So, I think it's okay to do this, and, there's a whole bunch of people that are really excited about having it, and I think that's great. I'm actually not keen on the idea of having it at Town Center Park, but if everybody else seems to think it's a good idea, then who am I? I'm gonna go fight for the town hall, I'm not gonna fight for it, I'm gonna work for it.
And just to be clear, I'm not opposed to the idea of having a pickleball court, even if it's not something I want. It's the way that this process is, how the proposal was developed. It was poorly done. And the town deserves a better, but, I'm not voting against it. I'm just disappointed in a number of the steps that, that the CPC approved something without a budget. I mean,
Well, no, I was there when this guy proposed it, and he was totally gung-ho, and he was prepared, and he had a great big presentation, and, he really walked them through the whole thing, and he didn't propose to any private funding, but he may not be familiar with our history of asking for that, and
No,
you know,
but was
I
there a
realize-
budget? Because I was told there was no budget. I didn't see a budget until last week.
I haven't seen a budget.
I believe that the original proposal for this idea was for $65,000.
And did
That's
you,
my recollection. I'd have to, ask Krista, or look at the minutes or something,
Okay.
but,
because I asked at the finance hearing and they hadn't seen a budget and Recreation said the 65,000 came from other towns that had built pickleball courts. That's not a
Well, it could
budget.
be where Hank Tarby got it.
Well,
but-
that's not a budget. I mean, come on, these are taxpayer dollars and we're not taking it seriously. I don't care if it's only $65,000. We're screaming about, vehicles being bought for that much. We should be asking more for information if we're gonna spend $65,000. That's my whole problem with this proposal. It's not about the court itself. It's about the way that, numerous steps were taken without actually asking hard questions about what's it really gonna cost us.
But can I ask a question? Is that really different than how many items on this warrant, how the number was developed?
No, I hear capital planning goes through a huge amount of work to get real numbers, right? You
But the-
push back over and over again.
But the initial number is often, well, that, it comes from what another town spent for a similar piece of equipment.
But I think, sorry,
I think you could say that for equipment, they largely come from the same vendor. But I'm sort of asking Denise, I kind of have the impression that when you're developing the number to go to town meeting with, asking your fellow towns what they spent on something similar is not unreasonable.
No, I will say there are some articles in here, I think the town center corridor actually was based on a similar project in a surrounding town, because with engineering costs, you're not sure of actuals. We did get actual numbers on trucks and things like that. Again, they could change when we actually put them out to bid or call to buy them, but there are some that are just estimates based on what we expect it to cost, and that's sort of a not to exceed number, cause it may come in lower when all is said and done.
but so to Ellen's point, and I do understand exactly what you're saying with that, is that when this kind of a proposal does have hard costs. And so I think that it would behoove us to see how much a net would cost,
Right.
what asphalt or what the ground would cost, all of these things. Just a simple Excel, thing. And it sounds like it was just sort of this is what this town paid for this kind of thing. And I agree with you. I think it's not that hard to kind of put placeholder numbers in somewhere to say, this is how I got to this number. And I think moving forward, that may be something we look at for future town meetings is, and maybe working with the CPC to make sure that we get those numbers, because it's hard to, obviously, we're sitting here having this very intense discussion. And so it would be helpful to be able to have the information to back up the number with some hard costs.
So I thought that I heard earlier in this discussion that Laura Greenhill had looked into this, and it might not cost as much as was being allowed by the CPC. And I'll just have to say, in her defense, having been on CPC where she brought the whole Pine Bluffs redevelopment through, at first I didn't know her well, and I didn't know her style, but I think she's very diligent and she works hard and really gets great results. And I think she often really bargains with the contractors and really drives a project to be on budget or under budget. And it's sort of part of our culture here in town, and I think she just does a great job. So I think if Laura has looked at this and thinks that it's feasible, that it's likely to come in well as her other projects often have.
I think we've probably beaten this to death enough. My opinion is, I'd rather put the money towards Hallett's Point or even the town hall. But I'm happy to take a motion I'd also be happy if we made no recommendation on it. So,
I have one more question. Denise, or somebody, if somebody asks us if we are in control of this land, did we give this, is it really under the control of the recreation department right now?
No, it is not.
Under our control.
Yes, it is.
So that would be a reason that we might wanna get clear on
I
our
feel much
opinion about this.
well, one of the things that we did have a large conversation about a number of years ago when we acquired that land was we weren't gonna turn it over to anybody because we wanted to we didn't wanna turn it into conservation land. We didn't want to give it to somebody else. We wanted to make sure that if we ever had a greater need for that piece of property, that we had the ability to do so.
So
And I think at the time also, if I recall, Jim, we also said, we probably don't wanna put a lot of infrastructure there in case we ever take it away.
So we did turn a huge chunk of it over to the Concom, I believe.
Yes, 6.5 acres,
Right.
sort of down to the pond is, under the care, custody, and control of the conservation. The remainder is under the care, custody, and control of the Board of Selectmen.
I think we always intended to keep the portion that could one day be used for a water source potentially.
Or any other source.
Yeah.
Or-
And frankly, I don't know if we one day, if we intended to transfer anything to the recreation, but we didn't. If we had transferred it to recreation, this would be completely out of our hands.
Right.
Because the statute gives them, they're the kings in recreation land. But this appears to remain. So I wanna make a motion that the board recommend the town meeting approve Article 52 pickleball court.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we use the word acquiesce to the use of the land for pickleball.
I think that'll come after this.
Okay. Oh, you mean down at the Ruby? Oh, sorry.
I do not have a second.
Second, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
2, 3, 4. I'm
Aye.
opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
You did after all that?
That's what I said.
I was gonna
I'd
say
be
that about
happy,
you.
happy not to take any position, but
I would go along with no position, but it is in our care and custody.
And
it's
I
gonna get
did
a-
pull the deed to confirm that, so.
And it's gonna get a gigantic amount of debate, so how do we sit there with that?
alright, 53. Caneland walking trails.
I guess I had just put this on as, the bigger ones that, community preservation's, generally, I feel like we should, I know the prevailing norm has been to just move them on to town meeting should vote for them, that's okay with me most of the time, but I think, even so, I think the select board should take a position on them. I'm totally in favor of this one, there's so little that we do down in the Gleasondale area except for make their lives miserable by trying to fix their bridge, so I think this is a great project and I'd like to see it supported.
Anybody wanna beat this one up?
Like,
Nope,
you-
I'm in
no,
support.
I'm in favor of it. I think that, I feel like part of it is going to be like a scout project as well.
So the Boy
and,
Scouts are building bridges to go
Yes.
over the
So,
culverts.
And I'm actually in favor of this one too, so I'm
Great.
happy to take a
So let's
motion.
take a
I'll take a motion that we, the select board approve Article 53, the Caneland walking
Second.
path.
All in favor?
Aye.
I must note something for the record.
yes.
The town is not doing the bridge work.
No, I know.
No.
I didn't say they were doing, we're just making their lives miserable.
I remember well, the Thursday in October 2015, when we found out that DOT was going to close the bridge the following Tuesday. And Bill and Kate Hogan spent all weekend, and the result was that they kept one lane open, thank God. Not our decision,
Can you
but, yeah, I
imagine?
know.
Wow,
Alright,
all right.
last one up is Article 54. Stowe Acres Conservation Restriction Purchase.
And if I can just comment, you'll see the note that was added to the end of that, that this 1.5 million, as we've discussed, in the CR will remain in escrow until the phase 2 is negotiated and approved. So we would
Which
not.
is
Good, it's like a good-
hugely important to me.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I just didn't understand, so that makes me so happy.
Yep. And that will be the motion as well, so we will be holding on to that money and the CR until we, and quite frankly, both sides want that because Stowe Acres doesn't want the CR if the rest of the project is gonna go forward, because then they quite frankly could sell it all, so.
Right.
Both sides agree that this is the best way to move forward.
Awesome.
So we're going to basically take that money out of CPC funds, not actually spend it, but we're holding it. Okay,
Correct.
got it.
And the CR that we would file, we would wait until we
The
actually
next
have it,
bit is done.
next phase, yep.
No,
Okay.
Basically, we're allocating it to it, and if it doesn't happen, later on, we can reclaim it.
Yep, it shows that we're interested, we're serious about it,
Good
but
faith.
All of
Okay.
which seems to be
Megan-
very, all of which
Just
seems.
a
Sorry.
comment on CPC.
Yep.
Generally, projects that are approved at town meeting for CPA funds, the money goes back into the unreserved, CPC account if the money doesn't get utilized for some reason. So
Okay.
even if we weren't setting this aside in escrow, if the thing didn't fly, that's what happens with CPA funds.
Okay, thank you.
I suppose just putting it in escrow means we can't drag it back there without breaking the
correct.
escrow and all, you know, so there's,
Jim, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, it seems, showing good faith, showing we're ready to do it, showing that there's support seems to be very important here. Cause, you know, the owner doesn't have to do this, and my understanding is
Yeah.
that he continues to get, approached
I would think.
by other interested parties, and to keep him talking to us requires a little bit of action.
And this is a good time to say they're having another hearing on the Stowe Acres property tomorrow night,
Tomorrow
right?
night.
Wednesday night?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know off the top of no, but it's on the website.
Yeah, so it's, I'll go through my spiel when I,
Oh, okay.
in the next,
Great.
but yes, it'll be tomorrow night.
Alright, should we do a motion?
Make the motion that we
happy
support
with
Article 54, the Stowe Acres Conservation Restriction Purchase.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Alright. Where we're kind of on town meeting stuff, one of the things that I have had a quick conversation with the moderator about, and this kind of fits into it,
Is
is
it gonna take away all the questions I have for you?
possibly.
Okay.
One of the things is where do we wanna sit? Are we all gonna sit together inside? Is everybody comfortable with that this year? Given vaccination schedules, et cetera? Or are there people, you know, anybody that really wants to sit outside and feel strongly about it?
I think we were, well, alright.
I'm comfortable inside.
I'm fine inside.
Jim,
Me too.
Courtney?
inside's good.
Alright, one of the things I was gonna suggest, and it's kind of what we did when we were doing the police chief interviews, is everybody, you know, obviously everybody will still be wearing masks, but when you're speaking, making motions, maybe take it down. You know, if everybody's comfortable with that, I'm not sure exactly how we're gonna get set up. Last year, we were strictly 6 feet apart. We may be a little bit closer this year. Denise, I don't know
Yeah, do you want me to go into my stuff about town meeting?
if, maybe that's, you know what? I'll let you go into your stuff,
Okay,
because the only other thing I was gonna say is how we were gonna do the motions.
okay. Yeah, so let me talk about logistics a little bit first. So one of the questions, so you've answered the inside, outside. Do you all want to sit facing the town meeting? I know last year, I think you, Jim, you sat in the crowd because you sat behind me. I think it was just, maybe just Tom, you sat Courtney,
I was
don't
up on, I
remember.
was kind of up on the stage,
You were-
Courtney was.
Yeah, so do you all wanna sit sort of in the front facing, or do you wanna sit in the audience? How do you wanna be? And the second question is, if you all wanna sit up front, do you all want your own microphone, or would you be comfortable sharing microphones?
I mean, I've always liked the tradition of the board sitting together facing the audience. But I mean, these are different times, so I don't have a strong feeling.
No, it's really preference, just so we can set up and plan accordingly,
I
so.
think that makes sense, logistically, right? And I think if we are comfortable, given our vaccine status, then
Okay.
I'm fine with sharing a microphone. I don't really see the need to have to run 5 separate microphones, especially if we're mostly keeping our masks on, but.
Either way for me, I actually enjoyed not having all eyes on me, but I understand it's tradition.
I sort of like sitting together as a group, facing the audience, and I'm happy sharing the mic.
Okay. And then there is some, so we actually have a walkthrough on Thursday, because there's still some questions about where presentations will be done this year. If the screen that comes down actually may block the folks that sat on the stage last year. So it may be that you're just sort of in front, or we're just in front. Although I prefer to sit near town council, so I like to have them nearby. So if council's on the stage, I may sit on the stage with council. But so we will discuss that. And then, so I know you mentioned, Tom, the 6 feet, 3 feet. How comfortable are board members sitting apart from each other? I mean, obviously, we won't put you shoulder to shoulder, but is there a buffer distance that you would all be comfortable with, or?
We're not 6 feet now.
This is probably about 4.
Yeah.
You comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, now that I'm fully vaccinated, I have a far more comfort level with that, so
Yeah,
whatever works.
Whatever.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll leave some space, but I don't know how much, I actually forgot to ask Erica how far, or if they all wanted to sit up there, so I'll follow up with the finance committee.
Sharing a mic's gonna be tough.
Well, I think we could still do a couple, possibly 2 or 3, depending on how we space you out. If you all want your own, we do have enough to have one for every member.
That sounds like a good compromise. When we're all together, it's easy to pass the mic along, but
Well, that's true, good point. It's
right.
Right, yeah, no, we'll definitely have a couple for the board, but if you don't all need your own individual ones, then obviously we can spread them out a little more. And so I'll ask mainly Megan and Ellen, because you guys were outside last year, were there any issues with sound? We just wanna make sure speakers and things like that, there were no glitches. I know there was some issues with the moderator hearing, because there were no speakers on the stage, which we are going to address, but was there anything specific outside that you noticed that we can address this year?
There was,
It
because I
was.
remember going inside to ask them I talked to Jonathan about something that wasn't working, but I honestly can't remember anymore if it was something very specific.
I think it was more the making sure that people were heard on the floor, like making sure that like it was clear if they were taking questions inside, or if there was a line inside, then people, and so just making sure that was, and also it was hard to hear.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what that was. What I was saying to Jim before the meeting is some kind of a projector or some kind of a screen, just having like a visual. No.
So we've decided we can't make that work,
Okay.
because we would have to have a dedicated person outside to try and synchronize what's happening inside,
Okay.
because we can't link the 2 projectors together, so we did explore that.
Got
And so for the outside folks, and quite frankly, the inside folks that aren't sitting close to the screen, we will have handouts of all the presentations, and they will be one packet that folks can pick up.
Okay.
Because
They did a
if we
great
have
job
people
with
way in the back of the room, you're not gonna read that screen anyways.
Right.
So no, we did consider that, but
I think the only, if if there was a way to, I mean, the other thing that works, like when we've had remote access at Hale, is just a screen that you can see the moderator and basically whoever's talking from the stage, not necessarily presentations, but I don't know if that, I mean, we didn't have that last year, and I don't know that it made a huge difference. I mean, we didn't have huge numbers either, but, and this year, I'm not sure we'll have that many, you know, the people see the logistics, they'll probably go inside more readily than they would have a year ago, so.
Right. I mean, I would agree, I think more people will tend to be inside, obviously depending on the weather.
Right.
Right. But we just wanna make sure that we can cover as many bases or any issues that there were last year, so. We have a little more difficulty this year because school is in session, so setting up and things like that, we have to go at 3:30, we have to test it in the afternoons. We won't be able to set up really in advance other than Friday. The Meridia company that does the clickers are coming in, 3:30 on Friday, so we're gonna try and do as much as we can and piecemeal over the next, week and a half to make sure everything is good to go on the 22nd, so.
And we have no rain plan, I mean, the plan is, we're going ahead with this,
Yes, because we actually have multiple tents, so there's a tent obviously in the back area. We have tents over the entrances, the exits, so that when people are coming in, there's a tent. So there are still a number of tents. And again, quite frankly, if it rains, there will be space inside. The way the vaccination schedules are going, I think people will be much more comfortable sitting inside. There will be, half of the area will be set up with tables. So there will be like a 6-foot table and a chair on each side. So people may gravitate to the table so they can, put a bottle of water or put their warrant down. And I think that will attract some people as well.
Now, and sadly, I think Bolton, their town meeting only had under 120 people.
is that right?
That was the same as their election. They only had less than 150 people turned up at their election yesterday.
Wow.
That's sad.
4%.
We had a low number, but not that low.
Yeah.
And they had a debt exclusion for a fire truck.
I think we'll get
I think,
fair attendance because of
we
Stowe
won't get
Acres.
800.
Yes.
Yeah.
The moderator expects Halleck Point to get a large crowd.
Yeah.
But that was expected last year with the school, and I know Saturday mornings are tough, so we'll see. We'll plan for it and we'll see what happens. Okay, so Tom, those are all my logistics questions.
The only other thing I was gonna bring up is, see if I could get a consensus on whether we wanna go, traditionally, we've gone, pass the mic down, we just go round robin as far as making the motions. I think last year what we did is we blocked them off so that, if I recall correctly, I think we blocked them off. People were assigned a chunk of them so that we weren't passing microphones around nearly as much and so on,
So what motions are you making?
for all of the articles.
He has us move, he has the selectmen.
Oh, I
move that.
thought the finance committee was doing that.
No.
It's normally the
No.
finance committee that, okay,
No, the selectmen move all the articles.
okay. So
It,
we're working on the motion books for you now, and what we are going to do this year is, we're gonna put the article on the left and the motion on the right so that you won't need like a separate book, and we're gonna try and put it all right in that book for you.
Awesome.
And typically, the member of the board who makes the motion gives our recommendation if we made a recommendation.
Okay.
so, I don't know what everybody thinks, the traditional route, or, if we're gonna have multiple microphones, I suppose we could wipe them down in between, we'll have a little more flexibility, or would you rather do it in chunks? Dave is gonna wanna know who's making the motions.
well, Jim was saying earlier, if we do it alphabetical, then it's just easy for them to assign us. We could just sit alphabetically in a row, and then they can assign the book easily to motions.
You closest to the moderator, and then the rest of us alphabetically. That's what we usually do.
That's fine, and then we just pass it.
Right.
We'll figure out what the mic situation is.
That also makes it, as soon as if you go to Stowe's and you say that's how we're gonna do it, Linda typically says, okay, I'll just fill it in. So you don't have to sit there and say, this one's out, this one's in.
My big thing was, just to try to make, I figured I'd work it out one way or another.
Yeah.
But you know, if people weren't, if people were more inclined to, all right, look, I just wanna read off, my 5, do it and be done. You know, there'll be obviously a little bit of, movement on there. Usually we give one person the entire consent calendar and they get stuck with, any of the ones that get held. You know, all the capital articles, it's a single article, but, you know, usually one person, I think, does all the capital.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
You know, but, you know, like I said, I just wanted to make sure, you know, depending on how comfortable people were and where people were gonna be sitting, you know, if we're all gonna be sitting together, it makes it much
Right.
easier, you know, which was my big question to begin with.
So we will need a list of the articles that we were just recommended on.
Well, no, cause if you make, yes, so I mean, I have the list of the ones you recommended, which I'll put in the motion book.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I kept notes, but
Yes,
I don't trust that.
yes, no, I have the list, I'll write that up. So then do you wanna look at the table of contents now and decide who's doing what?
No, I think you and I can work that
Yeah, you
out,
guys should,
Okay,
you know,
You just
I don't
tell-
think we need.
Just tell me what I need
Yeah.
to say.
okay,
And that's how we've generally done it in the past, you know, it's basically random, you know, other than, you know, it goes down the line. So if we do it alphabetically, everybody's gonna be sitting, you know, I'll end up sitting next to you and, you know, generally town council sat on the other end, but we can put town council wherever you'd be happy. I'll sit next to you, and then we can just go down the line alphabetically if everybody's good with that.
okay.
Sure.
And so that'll make it easy.
Okay,
Um,
57 articles and 30 of them are on the consent calendar. So
Right.
really, there's only 27 left after that, and, you know, the first couple are relatively, minor.
One question, Mr. Chair, who's coming from KP? Is it John or somebody new?
so I don't know if John is coming as well, Bill Hewig is now our main legal counsel, and I've actually worked with him for the last 7 years, so they assigned him for us. He said he will be there, so I don't know if John is coming also. I don't know if his Saturdays are free right now, but Bill Hewig will be there.
Are there any other town meeting stuff that anybody can think of? And Denise, I'll talk to you in the next day or two and we can get that stuff straightened out.
So yes, I guess I will, so do you feel we need a meeting next Tuesday? We had that as a placeholder for town meeting business.
Right
I
now,
don't think
I'm not thinking
see
that
it.
we do.
Okay, and so then I assume we don't need to meet too early the morning of, because there's probably not a lot of business that we need to do before town meeting?
Say 8:30?
So you want an 8:30 meeting on the 22nd? And I assume the language in that is just the standard, any relevant town meeting business, meet with town council, things like that, sort of the standard town meeting language?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't, we discussed a few articles last year that we still had hanging
Yep.
out there, but we spent the time tonight, so I don't think we'll be spending that much time.
Okay, we'll get that going. So those are all the town meeting questions I have.
Okay. And I think that took care of all the ones Dave had.
Yes, cause my questions were his questions. And Stowe TV's questions, and we met yesterday, we're meeting again Thursday, and so just wanna get everything ironed out.
Okay. And all right, next, it's something I asked to be put on, which was the board and committee appointment process. I'm gonna try to make it quick, because I really don't, I'm not gonna have a lot of input in it going forward. But traditionally, we've always made sure that Anybody who's gonna come before us to be appointed to a committee or any of the boards that we appoint them to. This doesn't include, police, fire appointments, anything like that, but it's volunteer committees and boards. That we usually have made sure that they attend a meeting, they have some idea of what the job responsibilities are for them. And, typically we ask them to meet with the chair of that committee. And then we try to get a recommendation from them. I think it's a great addition that Denise is giving us recommendations on them now, but I think that right now I was actually appalled at myself we made a bunch of appointments and when we had the quick meeting where we were trying to get out, we just blasted through the appointments and I found out afterwards that some of them, the committees didn't have any idea that we were even discussing them. I've gotten some feedback that, it's kind of disrespectful, that they didn't even know that they were getting somebody. That the last appointment we made, the person has never even attended a meeting, much, and we then appointed them, and maybe they'll be great, maybe they won't, but I think that it's important that we keep the boards and committees in the loop on this and ask any prospective candidates to go and meet with them. We don't have to, if they say, well, we don't want this person, that doesn't mean we're not going to vote to appoint them to it. But I think that it's kind of disrespectful to the committees not to involve them in it and make sure that the candidates that we're putting forward have actually met with them. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, and I think that a process should be determined that where we end up sending them to them after they've met with the committee, they find out a little bit about it, then they meet with Denise. Denise gives us a recommendation, and if the board or committee wants to give us a recommendation, they do so also. I think the downside of not involving them is it's disrespecting people that have stepped forward and been involved in it for a long time, and they may feel that they're not valued. So that's my thought, and I feel pretty strongly about it. So I don't know how anybody else is feeling about making sure that we keep the volunteers that have put their heart and soul into it for years in the loop.
I think it's important, sure, but I also feel like it's also important to allow new people to be part of things. And I will tell you, I've been here for 8 years, sometimes people don't make it as welcoming as possible, and you need to sort of push your way in. And so I appreciate that, but I also feel like, I also think myself, I never would have joined a board or applied for anything that I hadn't attended a couple of meetings or I hadn't, done something. So I think some of it is just due diligence for the people who are applying, but I will say that has been something that I have dealt with. And I think that if we really want new blood, we want new people to step forward, that, I think we need to take people when they are willing to do that as well. So I hear what you're saying, but I also just wanted to say that as well.
Yeah. No, and that's it. If somebody says, look, I've tried, I've gone to some of their meetings, nobody will talk to me, then they talk to Denise, and, if they don't want to make a recommendation, we appoint them, because there have been very few people that we've turned down for any kind of appointment. in the last few years. There's only been one that I felt was contentious. And that committee actually made a recommendation and we went against it because we felt that changes were needed. But, you know, when I found out that I'd appointed people that had never attended a meeting, I was appalled.
Well, I would say it's two really different things to me. One is, yeah, sort of to Megan's point, the idea that you join a committee and having never seen how it works. Now, these days you can go on Zoom and watch them, so, but, you know, so I think that that's important, but, I think it's, we have a lot of committees that they're all about their, basically, friend group, whatever, and it's not getting new ideas, and it's causing problems. I mean, I think we have to start talking about term limits of some committee chairs, because I think that's a similar kind of, just get a little too comfortable, and we need to welcome new ideas, and there's people who are not welcoming. And that's an absolute truth. I mean, there's definitely people who are not, nope, I'm gonna pick this person, this person, this person, and that's it, you know? So I'm actually, I don't agree with you, Tom. I would say, you know, yes, people should all, you know, and, you know, I wouldn't expect anybody to even apply to join a committee without having attended at least one. Cause they might be really surprised when they get there, like, some people who get into elected boards and then find out what they got themselves into. So, you know, but I think, that, you know, and I'm not even sure that Denise is the right person to be recommending. I mean, I think coming to the select board, that's one of the few things we do, is we appoint members to the committee. And, you know, I'd rather have a conversation with the person directly and not put it on Denise to have to decide, you know. And the great thing about Denise right now is that she's the newcomer and she has a fresh perspective on what might work or not work, or someone's, you know, maybe someone be more comfortable talking to Denise than me because I've lived here too long, you know. But I just feel like, I think we need to keep talking about what's the right way to encourage people to join committees. Now, it's not like they're beating down the doors and we have 6 people for 1 seat, you know. That would be a nice problem to have, but I think,
Yeah.
you know, also not just filling a seat because it's open, you know, because there's someone else who's gonna come and toe the line and be the exact same perspective that's already there, you know. I'd rather have an opening, frankly, so.
Courtney?
I kind of agree with some of that, but I see it as a sort of an all of the above or a both and situation. You know, I can see a moment where it could be that Denise would recommend somebody to us that perhaps the committee didn't, or board didn't, you know, didn't really have a beat on who they were, or didn't necessarily feel that they were fit, and we might overrule that. I really think I kind of think it's important that someone interested in volunteering in one of these groups get a real sense of the group, because if they're really not aligned and the group is aligned, it's gonna be a bit of an uphill battle, and they just better be ready for that. You know, I'm not saying they can't do it, but that's one thing, and another thing is I think it's unfortunate to blindside a bunch of volunteers. I don't particularly want to get blindsided much, and so I think I'd like to see, speaking to something that Ellen just said, I don't know how we would do this, so maybe not decide it tonight, but I'd almost like to have perhaps some guideline or policy where if we think somebody's highly unsuitable, if one of the people in the process thinks that an applicant is unsuitable, that they don't get appointed right away, that maybe they're encouraged to be an associate member until we can, you know, sort of just feel it out a little bit. And I think most of our groups, somebody can go and watch, listen, even comment in many cases without having to be a voting member. So I'd be in favor of requesting that an applicant have some commerce with the group they're applying to, and also with Denise, and ultimately with us. I
Jim?
think that's all my thoughts for the moment.
So I think this should be a written policy because I think this is an area where there's going to be change from the past, and that's okay. And that means everybody needs to be on the same page. And whatever it is, we need to be behind the town administrator on this. I think the town administrator's recommendation, I differ with you in that the town administrator's recommendation is not just an additional recommendation, as the charter requires, I think. It is the recommendation. It is the only required recommendation. Now, the policy should say, and I would think Denise would do this anyway, that in the course of making her recommendation, there's certain things she should do. She should consult with the affected board. Even if there's only one candidate, she should run the name by them, because it's not unheard of that somebody with an axe to grind wants to get on the board, and that doesn't eliminate them, but you want to know that. And there should be a requirement that they attend at least one meeting. We did appoint somebody, it became clear that they hadn't gone to a meeting, and I was a little surprised at that. And then that recommendation should come to the board of selectmen, by that time select board. And if there's a competing recommendation from the affected board, I'm sure we'll hear about it. If they send us something, it'll be in our packet. That's fine. I would imagine the town administrator would consider that. But the only necessary recommendation should be the one from the town administrator. You know, I would take it further and say, if we go along with the town administrator's recommendation, fine, we can just do that. I agree with Ellen, it would be nice to at least see the face. If we don't go along with her recommendation, we have to interview the competing candidates. Because that's basically us saying, thanks for all your hard work, but we'd like to actually do this one ourselves. But that's sort of a detail. But I really feel strongly that this ought to be in writing. There is a bit of confusion out there. It is going to be different than the past. Everybody should be on the same page, and we should be behind the town administrator in this new process.
And, you know, given that in 2 weeks I'm not gonna be on the board, I'm happy to kick it down the road to you guys. But I just felt it, you know, I felt strongly enough that I wanted to at least bring it up tonight. And, you know, what you said, Jim, as far as, you know, having a process like that, fine, you know, town administrator tells them they should, you know, attend 1 or 2 meetings, something like that. At least they're involved, you know, so.
Well, is there enough of a consensus among the board members that we want the town administrator to take our crystal clear instructions and try to draft something?
Well, if you would, you know, kind of a draft, I suppose what I was thinking is that, you know, the prospective candidates should have attended at least 1 meeting and had a conversation with the chair of the board or of the committee about what the job entails. I actually talked to one chair of a committee, and he told me that somebody came up to them, you know, somebody was all excited about getting on one of the committees, and they thought this is what the committee did. After he talked to him, he said, that's not what we do. This is the job we do.
But that's not unique to this situation. There's a lot of people who, you know, overstep or understep what they think they're supposed to be doing on the committees.
Right.
I would actually not like to make any decisions tonight. I
Can we
wanna
just
read
table
the
this till we have the
charter.
board?
Yep.
I wanna read like where it sits right now and have some more conversation about it. So that's,
If, I'm happy to do that. If everybody else is in agreement, we'll move on then. And
I'm fine with moving on. I think, I'm glad we started the conversation.
all right, and we have a, I've now lost everything. Permit for the recreation department for the boating program. And it appears that the recreation department wants to basically renew their commercial use permit for canoes and kayaks and paddle boards down at the lake. And the Rec Commission sent a note to the Lake Boone Commission. And the Lake Boone Commission has unanimously supported the Recreation Director's request. And I think they've had a great program down there before with the canoes and kayaks. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions, or Denise, if you've got anything to add to that?
I support the request and from LBC and Recreation.
what's our liability, particularly for the rental? I mean, I understand when it's camp, it's sort of its own thing, but when it's just, because I've heard the boats weren't secured and I don't know if they're, I mean, I assume they've all been found at this point, but in terms of renting, especially when they're talking about, renting paddle boards and as well as kayaks and canoes.
Yes,
What's that?
You have to sign a waiver,
yes, anyone
so it
renting the
releases
equipment.
us from, like
Is
it's
it a
a,
binding waiver?
Well, I mean, is any waiver, I mean, someone can
Okay.
certainly sue us.
I mean,
Pretty
I-
effective.
Yeah.
They're pretty effective. I mean, yeah, there could be a lawsuit, but they're pretty effective.
Okay.
You don't have to get in that boat.
Right.
So you have a choice.
Nobody's got any more questions? I'm happy to take accept the motion.
On the recommendation of the Lake Boone Commission, I move to grant a commercial use permit to the Stowe Recreation Department for its boating program for Camp Stowe on the town beach for the 2021 season and valid through December 31, 2021, that would be cool, and to waive the $5 fee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The waivers on the back of baseball tickets are effective. This was an assignment in law school and
Yeah,
brief
they're
on that.
effective. When you get hit by a ball and
You agree, when you go, as a condition going in, that if you get hit by a ball, you waive all liability. At least 35
and it got held.
years ago, they were effective. so.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And
right.
of course, nobody even knows they've agreed to it. It's like going online, clicking, yeah, I agree.
I'm going down on December 30th and renting a canoe.
The permit is here for those of you in person on your way out, if you could kindly sign it.
Right. Town administrators report.
And we've covered all but one item. So as Ellen mentioned earlier, tomorrow evening, the Stowe Acres project team is hosting a public forum at 7 p.m. via Zoom to present updated plans and concepts as part of the ongoing Stowe Acres Golf Course master planning effort. This public forum will be an opportunity to see how further feedback and planning research have helped focus development and further balance the conservation, recreation, housing vision that has taken shape. This is the final public forum planned prior to the vote on May 22nd at the annual town meeting. So I encourage those of you who are interested in this to either watch it live tomorrow evening on Zoom, or Stowe TV it will not be live on Stowe TV. They have another presentation being made, but this will be recorded and replayed. So I encourage all to watch that are interested. And we covered everything else I had already.
I have Two questions for you. One is, I have not watched the daily update by the governor. What's our thinking about when buildings are gonna be able to be opened again? Do we have any better sense?
No, I mean, quite frankly, everybody's still all over the place as far as cities and towns go. You know, we started having some discussions of a soft opening, but quite frankly, until we know that all employees are vaccinated or have had the opportunity to be, and that residents are, I'm just not comfortable still having people in the buildings. That coupled with the fact that now everyone's taking all their vacation time that's been stored for 2 years, I don't wanna open the building and have offices closed, so we're just trying to time that accordingly, I would think. And I'm trying to keep an eye on the state, when the state offices reopen or they're ready to reopen is what I've been targeting. But quite frankly, it's still hit or miss around town, some town halls are open, but their senior center and libraries are closed. Actually, I had a retirement party for a municipal employee the other day, and there are towns that are still fully remote, people aren't even in the offices, so I think we're doing good that employees are here, and we are meeting folks by appointment, we are conducting business. But as far as getting people in the buildings, I'm just not there yet. So we are talking about it and thinking about it, and I do track what's happening at the state level.
I get that question pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So I just figured, well, I'll ask you to comment on it. And then the other thing was, we were having a conversation on Saturday about Bose, have they officially told us that they're leaving the
Yes.
Stowe property? And, you know, it was one of these things, I really should know the answer to this, but if it's an empty building versus a busy building, is there a tax impact?
Only on personal property.
Just on personal.
So we have met with Bose. We've discussed what we perceive the town's vision of that property is. We've encouraged them, we had town council on the call and encouraged them what we think is the best approach for them. Quite frankly, some of the things that they are looking at as part of their sale would create an adversarial relationship, I will say, with the complex. And actually, town council John Witten was pretty funny. He actually said to them, "Is this what you want your legacy to be when you leave town?" So it is a work in progress. I will tell you, I got a letter, we just got a letter from them that they have to do well testing for PFAS. So they are checking their property, and because of our park that abuts there, they're gonna put some monitoring wells around. But they are actively for sale, and we've gotten a bunch of calls, Jesse's gotten calls, he's met with or spoken to quite a few people that have been interested in it. And again, their proposals are, quite frankly, either 40Bs or massive distribution centers that would have 18-wheelers up and down that road. So we've strongly encouraged against either one of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of affordable housing. No.
Very small buildings inside.
Yeah, you just apartment buildings, you know.
Yeah.
No. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Liaison reports. Megan.
I have nothing except that the Town Hall Restoration Committee is meeting again tomorrow night to talk about forward steps. I don't know.
Aren't you glad I gave that to you?
And I'm glad it's up soon. I'm gonna
Jim?
not do that.
Can I just say something about that?
Yep.
I would just suggest, I don't know who I'm talking to, I guess I'm talking to everybody. I'd really like to make some effort to help guide their discussion or involve ourselves in their discussion. Just because, or at least to make clear as an individual, I don't even know how the rest of you feel about this, that I don't want you to just bring the same thing back next year. That isn't why I got kicked. You know, just try to be more creative.
Right, sorry. I'm being a little disingenuous. We have split into 3 separate groups. One is working on fundraising, one is working on community outreach. The other one is working on, Courtney, help me. What's the third arm?
Public relations?
No, I said that. Anyway, so we did, one of the things that came out, we sort of had a come to Jesus moment in within our committee, because it was clear that we did not have a direction.
Okay.
And so part of what we did talk about was how we were going to move forward. So I think there's a lot of sort of moving parts, so I think tomorrow night we're supposed to be meeting, and also with the architect, cause he has more questions about
Okay, thank
things,
you.
but yes, I'm being a little glib, but yes.
Thank you. Me? I don't have too much. The library trustees have started their mediation process. That's all I will say. That's all I know, really. There was a library building committee meeting last week, and we do not have responses to the RFR for the consultant yet. We were going through the rubric, the scoring document. But I wanted to let all of you know, in the course of doing that, once again, the issue came up about a 2012 engineering report and whether it says that books cannot go on the second floor. No one at the meeting had that document, but they were talking from memory, and Denise has seen it, I've seen it. And I pushed back, and frankly, I pushed back very strongly, and I don't regret that. And just kept saying, what does this matter? We have to revisit all of these issues. The new consultant has to take a look at this issue and come up with their own opinion. We're not bound by an 8-year-old report. I don't think that was received terribly well. But I want the board to know that I think there is some resistance on the part of the trustees to really revisiting the ideas that they came up with 10 years ago. There's not that much resistance on the part of the director. This is a new dynamic. But there is, and I at least think, and if you disagree, tell me, I at least think that everything's on the table. And in particular, we've got to be sure that we're using the existing space as efficiently as possible. Can't just assume that we need to expand the footprint of the building. Okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Well done.
And then LACAC had its first actual negotiation session with the attorney for the cable company for Xfinity. And it went very well. It was about an hour long. Most of the asks, deal with PEG, with SO TV. You could tell that we were not asking for anything that was outrageous, that, set him back on his heels. It was briefer than I thought it would be. And we'll have another session, I think, next month. And that's it.
Just to go along with your bit about the library, if you recall when we originally looked at Pompo, we weren't gonna be able to put fire trucks in there because certain sections were too low. We found a creative way around it, so,
Well,
kudos to you for pushing back on that.
Well, to be perfectly honest, it's very possible, this 8-year-old report says what it says, and it's very possible that the new consultant will come to the conclusion, oh, you can't put books up there. I find that hard to believe, but maybe they will, and that's fine, but we gotta go through the exercise. I found that 2012 report to be vague. I don't think it's dispositive. I don't really know what I think you.
No, I agree, and I will just add that I had a conversation with Craig about it, and he said that even engineering has come so far in 8 years that if, 8 years ago it couldn't hold books, they may be able to reinforce the floor or, from a lower level now to make it usable space.
Right.
So I agree that I think, my impression when I walked in there, I quite frankly said, I can't stand up at town meeting and support adding on to the building when you have a whole second floor that's not being used. I don't see how you could do that. How can you ask taxpayers for money when you have an entire, quite frankly, library sitting here empty? So I really do think they need to exhaust every option possible about utilizing the space they have. Again, reconfiguring and doing some things to the newer section, but I can't see adding on until they exhaust anything possible with that second floor.
And the director seems to agree, there's some resistance on the part, maybe of trustees, certainly a former trustee. And it's just, I'm trying to change the conversation a little bit, so.
Ellen?
Let's see, so recreation, summer positions just got posted today, I think, or yesterday, so for all the beach related and camp things, so if people are, got college students looking for jobs, that's good. And I just wanted to, Minuteman just had, 4 students are going on to the National Skill USA competition, and I just felt like they deserve to be recognized. I actually don't know which ones live in Stowe or not, but 3 sophomores, John O'Brien in biotechnology, Noah Varghese, and Dean O'Brien in environmental science majors were awarded a gold medal at the state competition. They'll go on to national. And then what's really cool is that an adult student, Ana Yeles Navarro, who's in the electricity program, earned a bronze medal and is also going to the nationals. So, you know, just nice to hear good news from Minuteman once in a while. And I think that's all I know. So there's been some great stuff. I think I sent around this Council on Aging's monthly newsletter, which people should remember, it's in your Action Unlimited, even though you might not read the rest of it. The COA's got some great programs going. And that made me think, and then I think there was also some new workshops from MAPC. I went to the regional meeting last week of Magic, and Jesse was there talking about the award that Stowe and Aurora is coordinating, but a number of really good things going on regionally. I think we need to I'm not sure how, but I think, being more involved, just Jesse being there means we're being included in some of these regional things that we weren't before, so I think it's great. I think we can take advantage of some regional planning, so that's all.
Courtney?
The Conservation Commission is lifting the leash advisory that's been in place during the pandemic. Flag Hill and Heath Hen Meadow conservation areas are still please leash your dog, and the Delaney area, which isn't under our purview, but it's also a leashed area, but everything else, that request has been lifted. Also, I believe the preliminary or the plans, the permit application for the water portion of the Plantation 2 project have been submitted. So water lines and a well. So, early work for Plantation 2, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah. Progress.
And the Stowe Acres Farm's already been mentioned. That's sort of an open space connection. That's it.
All right, I shall be quick. One of the things that I just kind of wanted to leave everybody with, the liaisons that I've done over the last 10 years really have been mostly in public safety. One of the things that I found very useful was to be sitting on the final screening committees for the police officers. In the past, the officers generally did the screening. I think what Chief Salisi has put together, having a couple civilians on there, is a great addition to it. But right now, the the interviews for the finalists are strictly being left up to Denise and Chief Salisi. Prior to the last 2 appointments for police officers, I've been involved in every one of the final interviews for the last 10 years. I found it very helpful to me as a selectman to be able to see the quality of the people that we had coming through, or the lack thereof, because there were a few dry spells during that time. And Denise's recommendation obviously goes a long way, But I think you guys may want to, going forward, think about having at least one selectman involved, or selectwoman involved in the final process for all the hires for the police. I'd forgotten about the fire department. I wish I had been involved in the selection of the one firefighter that we've done in the last 16 years. But it kind of just blew by me. So, you know, it's something that I think for you guys to think about going forward, to maybe not go back to the public safety committee that that had the fire chief, police chief, and highway superintendent, as well as a member of the board and the town administrator on it, that used to vet, or used to do the final interview and then make a recommendation. But having one of you guys on that final selection committee, I think is important. I think, Megan, I think you found the screening committee when we did the police chief search.
Yeah, for the police chief.
Right, but even doing it for the police officers, I think is important, as well as some others. But it's just something I wanna leave with you guys. I didn't wanna really discuss it, but you know, it worked, I think it worked very well for me personally. And I saw the quality of the people that we had coming through, not just the final one candidate. So, something to think about for the future. And we can move on to minutes, and maybe we can get out of here in 10. We have minutes of April 27th. Regular meeting.
So they look good.
They look good to me. Anybody have any problems with them?
Nope.
I'll take a motion.
I move to accept the meeting minutes of the April 27th, 2021 meeting as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We have executive session minutes from November 12th, 2019. I think that these are okay to okay them and release them personally. Anybody have any questions on those? I think Jim and I,
No, Courtney
Courtney
too.
and I were here.
Jim,
They look okay.
I'm here,
three of you are there.
I was there.
I'll make the motion anyway. I move to accept the meeting minutes of November 12th, 2019, executive session minutes as presented and release. Is that what we say? And
Yeah,
release?
and release
That's all we say.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Executive session minutes of September 24th, 2019.
This seems inadvisable in retrospect.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
can't change history. Oh, well.
But they seem accurate.
And we can release these as well, right?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the September 24th, 2019 executive session minutes as presented and to be released.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Say aye, just
Aye.
support you guys.
No, or abstain? You're gonna abstain?
Megan, did you want to abstain?
Yep.
You can still vote on them, even if you weren't there, just so you know.
I know, I
You
just don't want to.
Okay.
All right.
Right, where are
We're really getting into some oldies now.
I know.
July 11th, 2017. It was interesting going through that.
So I just wanna note, I wasn't here for this meeting.
Yep.
But for that reason, I remember reading them.
Huh.
I remember especially reading the thing about R.A. Danger Schultz. And there was something else.
So you're thinking that they were,
I am, but if there's no record, then there's no harm in doing it again. I'm just very disappointed in the prior record keeping. I checked out the formation of the Complete Streets Committee because I was advocating for that. So I just remember reading this. But I think if we can't find it, or if they're not, if there's no
Or if it
record
wasn't
of
taken to a subsequent meeting that they were approved, so. All right, so I move to accept the meeting minutes of the July 11th, 2017 meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
since none of us were there, basically.
Aye.
Or you were there.
Gonna abstain, Megan?
Yep.
All right. 4 to 1.
May 10th.
May 10th, 2017. That was just the reorganization meeting.
Looks about right.
Looks fine to me. Take a motion.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the May 10th, 2017 meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Megan abstains. Abstentions, I should just say abstentions. Should read it. And last is February 14th, 2017. And they look good to me.
Move to accept the meeting minutes of February 14, 2017 meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 And abstentions?
Aye.
The reorg meeting just made me think, usually because of the orders being different, we have a short meeting after the election, but now that, when I looked at the calendar, we actually have a scheduled meeting for that Tuesday after town meeting, so we're just gonna do the reorg meeting.
So we have a couple of things just because there are some normal business items, but it will be a very short agenda, mainly the reorg. Unless there's business
Oh,
items that
to
need
do
to
it
be.
right after.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the
okay, so-
25th will be a relatively short meeting, but
Okay.
there are some appointments that we need to make in May, and there was one or two other things on there.
Okay. So, but we don't have to worry about the short, I mean, I assume Linda's plan was to swear us in on.
She's still planning for something here on Monday, the 24th.
Okay. Was there anything in correspondence anybody wanted to discuss?
I mentioned mine, so.
The one letter that we got, is that going to go to planning? From the woman who abuts Nan's?
They've received it.
They've received it, okay.
Yes.
So, and I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, were you done?
I am, yes, that was my only question.
The woman who spoke at the beginning of the meeting and best correspondence in here, is she aware of the appeals process from decisions of the building inspector?
Yes,
Okay.
and if you will recall, informally, I had a conversation with most of you back in possibly January, regarding the sign bylaw that she wanted us to enforce, and that was the biggest complaint, and we decided that during a pandemic, to tell a small business to take the open sign out of their window was not in our best interest. So I
Right.
had asked Craig to send enforcement letters, but to take no further action. Because quite frankly, I've spoken to Jesse, I've encouraged him to encourage the planning board to revisit the sign bylaw. Apparently there's still hesitation on behalf of the planning board to revisit the sign bylaw, but I don't think we want to discourage our small businesses anymore for having an illuminated sign. The other issues have just come about, so yes, we will, she has been in contact with many people.
Okay, as long as she knows the formal process as well as the informal, so, thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.
All right.
Sorry to
Congratulations.
bring it up.